Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Lawsplaining the Interwebs. I am your host, Nick Rekieta of Rekieta Law, small law firm in central Minnesota, and with me today is my special guest, Mindy Wheeler. Hello, Mindy.
Hello, Nick.
Oh, here, I've already screwed up. I didn't have the thing switching to you, but it will now.
Oh, good, good. We're sharing some boomer moments already.
Yes. If there's one consistent aspect of my show, it's that I am consistently and perpetually unable to do this effectively. So
They
so
make it so hard.
I know these kids and all their OBSs and all their buttons. So anyway, hello. Hi. Thank you for joining me
Hello.
today.
Oh, thank you for having me, Nick. This is awesome.
Yes. For those of you who don't know, Mindy is an artist. She is a former comic book shop owner. She's releasing a book, a comic book in February. So we'll be talking about that and what you need to keep an eye out for. The book is called Karma. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, so we'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about her experiences as a comic shop owner. We'll be talking about her involvement or association with the evil, misogynist, racist brigade of Comicsgate. And
Mm,
we'll talk about
indeed.
we'll talk about being an independent creator with a family and what that means and what all that looks like. So hopefully you guys are as pumped as I am for this conversation because I have some questions that I think only a Mindy can answer. So if you guys have questions that you think only a Mindy can answer, please throw them in the chat. Mindy, if I understand, is in the chat, so she can see what you say. Other than
That's
that,
right.
yes. And so I will I will read a couple of these super chats and then we'll get into it. And if we're having so I'm going to definitely attempt to read every super chat that comes in. If I miss one, just tag me a whole bunch and yell at me or whatever. That's never the intent. But if we're like in a good conversation spot, I'm not going to interrupt it unless it's extremely relevant. So we're going to try and keep that rolling. Also, apparently Google has a moderator bot for the chat now, at least for some chats. I don't know if it's for everyone's. I don't know if it's for mine, but I guess that means you can say whatever you want. I don't know, because Google will just fix it for you. So take that as you will.
See, this is why it's difficult. This is why it's difficult for us.
Right,
They keep
exactly.
changing it up on us. Why would we want it to say what we wanted to say?
Exactly. All right. So first, Jason Bluth, I think he means Jason Youngbluth, won the debate. Now laugh. Yes, yes, he did because I transgressed the sacred rule of moderating a debate on my own show on YouTube. The sacred rule where if I throw him off the show for being a giant pile of trash, then he wins the debate against someone else.
That was very good, by the way. Very entertaining.
Oh, thank you. Thank
Everybody
you.
enjoyed it.
I think he even enjoyed it in his own perverted way.
Maybe he enjoys a lot of things we don't think about.
Yeah, yeah. I think maybe he has some enjoyments that are not all right. But we're gonna stay away from that and him as much as possible. Otherwise, we'll just be talking about Vox Day. So, Bagel Goose says, Nick late Kata. Yes, and I am late, guys. So someone I did see that someone was asking what I'm drinking tonight. I'm drinking sweet tea tonight. I had surgery this morning, so I am not having any alcohol tonight. So I apologize, but I will save up all of your Fireball super chats and attach them to some other thing. That's not true. I won't do that because I'll die. But Gojirify says FB, thank you. I'll drink tea to that. And Midnight Cherry TV says, oh, this is a question right for you, Mindy, and then we'll address this and then go on to my questions, I guess. Midnight Cherry
All
TV
right.
says, what are your takes on Cecil, Nurkish, and Nasser?
Okay. Well, Cecil, I think is hilarious. Now we'll talk about this in the show, but I don't have a lot of time. I say this all the time. You know, I don't have time to tune into everybody's live streams all the time, especially because I'm hunkering down on my book. But from what I've seen of Cecil, I really like him. I'm always for a sense of humor. I think humor is important, especially even comedians are getting, you know, shunned and blacklisted now because of the political atmosphere we're in, and I think that's unhealthy. I love comedy, so I've had nothing but good interactions with Cecil. Nurkish, I haven't really followed much of their stuff, so I need to check into that. Nasser, Nasser and I kind of get along, so that's what I'll say. But I mean, his book is great, so I mean, I got nothing against the dude, you know. We just disagreed a little bit on the image thing, but it was all professional, you know, and there's no hurt feelings or anything about it. I just had a different take on the image thing with Layman, but that's a whole other story. I really don't have anything bad to say about anyone. I don't really speak bad about anybody anyways, you know. It's not really my thing. So
okay,
all right,
so
I'll let you have the floor.
No, well, now you've interested me. What's the image thing with Layman?
Oh, well, Nasser was trying to, I guess, sort of do some kind of like social experiment, manipulative experiment, where he said that Layman was racist, but I guess he made it up. It wasn't actually real.
Oh.
And he was just doing it to try to prove a point that the SJWs are hypocritical or something along those lines. But my whole beef with it was I don't like false accusations, period. And right. I think it was just kind of a bad idea. And he was upset that people like Eric Larson and Todd McFarlane and all these people who founded Image and Robert Kirkman were not putting in their 2 cents on the racist situation. Like, they wouldn't give it any merit. But for me, like, I've met Todd McFarlane, I've met Kirkman, I've spent my time at shows. Like, I have had some of these people's personal emails, like talking business with them. Like, if you want to get their attention, you have to do it in a very professional way. Right. They're too busy. They're too busy to get on social media. So I thought that was kind of silly. And I also don't like false accusations. So that was just me. But, you know, he can do whatever we want. That's the great thing about this country, right? Right. So we got free speech. So all power to him. You know, I would have done it differently if it was me. And I only said anything because we started talking about it ourselves in a private chat. That's all. Sure.
And that's the beauty of how we should be interacting with people. We can get along with people. We can disagree with specific things that they do or think and still be civil or even friendly. I mean, yeah, dare I say that you can be friends with a Nazi. And I would strongly suggest that maybe if you don't agree with the Nazi, whatever Nazi means today, right? But if you don't agree with someone's ideology, the best way to influence that is to probably be friends with them if you can, right? But you can then positively influence them by, you know, just learning from each other and maybe politely poking some holes in their ethos. That's yeah. And you know, it's maybe it's because I come from a history of people making false accusations about me online, that I know how things can get so twisted that are not even accurate. And I think the internet is a bad echoing game of telephone. And when you start to play those games, it can get really ugly. So that's where I'm just coming from. But I completely agree. I'm very diplomatic. I'm very easy to get along with. And I told Nasser, like, it's totally fine, dude. Like, you know, we just come from different perspectives. But I just think Nasser's a bit fiery. That's all. He's like 23 years old. He's a guy. I remember being 23, you know, whatever. I think he's fine. I have no beef with anybody, really. Like, even the people that have made accusations against me, whatever, man. You know, you move on, right? You move on with life. Yeah, well, you can either get stuck in them. You can constantly defend the false accusations. You can take a route of embracing the false accusations to some degree, or you can just move on. But whatever course you take, moving on should be the ultimate part, because we can't be tied forever to our past, right? That's what the people That's what too many people in our society seem to want, is to tie you to some transgression or perceived transgression, and if they can just hook you to that and anchor you there, they'll get you stuck there. That seems to be the idea, but that's not how life works, and that's not how people work.
Yeah, not only that, but they want you to agree with them 100%. And people have to accept that nobody's going to agree with anybody 100%. That's what we went to school for. We played with on the playground, and we learned
Right.
how to play with each other differently, you know? It's like, okay, we're back to kindergarten. It's okay to disagree. It's okay.
Absolutely. Okay, so Bagel Goose says just tune into Cecil's streams. His are the only ones that matter. Buy Cash Grab, coming soon to Indiegogo.
Nice.
And Kaz5166 says, so Layman's accusations are fine. I don't know that anybody's saying, and I don't know. See, this is all the deep lore.
It is, right. And this is the part where I say, like, hey, I don't get time to go that deep. Like, I know Layman said some stuff too, and I've mentioned it in my videos on my channel. I don't agree with anything that happened on any side. You know, like, really, I'm trying to promote, as a part of Comicsgate, of being a professional, grateful, you know, creator, because you are grateful for the money. At least you should be. You should be grateful for the fans and the support, and so you should treat everyone like a human with some decency and respect. So that's like at the point where that was just it. I was just explaining Nasser, but we're not going to get into that whole thing because that's too much drama.
And I think it's important to note that you mentioned that the false accusations are that's not your style, no matter who's making them, and so there's no like, well, it's okay for one, it's okay for another. It's just like, that's not your game. I agree with you on that. We don't need to dwell on false accusations. We don't need to endorse or even really deal with them. That's other people's prerogatives. They shouldn't do them. False accusations are getting too much stuff happening lately.
Yeah, like a Kavanaugh, you know? Even Trump said the guilty before proven innocent is a toxic mentality. So I think the world would just be a better place if we just didn't accuse people of things. That's it. That's it. World peace, everybody.
So my thumbnail artist is asking, what's your favorite Death Grips track?
Death Grips? Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a favorite Death Grips track. I haven't really listened to them. I love metal music though, and rock music's probably my favorite.
I don't. He's been trying to get me to listen to Death Grips, but
is this that? Oh, never mind. I think I know what you're talking about now. I don't pay attention to names and titles very easily. I have a bad memory.
They're hard to describe.
Okay.
But they're very popular in certain circles, and I just haven't really had time to listen to it because I have so many kids that the music in our house is very specific. It's just how it ends up being.
I hear you. I've got Elmo playing on repeat like every day.
We've gotten them into some other things, but it's tough. It's tough. But let's move on. So why don't you tell me a little bit about who you are, your background, in regards to comics, because you've kind of run the spectrum of involvement. Like you're now a creator, but I say that, but you've been working on this book for a very long time. So it's not like you're now a creator. But you're a creator at this point. Prior to that, you've been on the retail side. You mentioned you've been to conventions. You've been involved in the scene. You've met several high-profile comic professionals. So why don't you tell me kind of the journey through that?
Wow. Yeah. The answer is just as long.
That's fine.
We'll begin. Well, as far as comics go, I'm completely open about this. I watched a video about what's her name, Anita Sarkeesian, whatever the gamer chick, and I watched this video last night. It was like 5 reasons why we hate Anita, and one of them was that she doesn't even like games, or something like that. You know, I caught her, she said this video, and I've been open about this for a long time. So I didn't grow up as a huge comic fan. That's out in the open because I'm a girl, right? Girls didn't really read comics.
How dare you? How dare you?
Me?
You misogynist.
I'm a woman hater. Oh, no. I mean, I just didn't. The superhero thing is not my thing. Obviously, I'm making a comic that's got like a Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter kind of feel, you know. It's good for both genders and it's good for kids, but it's not like superhero kapow stuff, you know, because that wasn't totally my thing. I can appreciate it, but I grew up reading fantasy novels, and actually my favorite types of books are nonfiction, but still, you know, I've always been very creative, always drawn, always painted, always wrote, always loved filmmaking. And sculpting, very creative, but I shunned art for a long time because I didn't want to be a starving artist.
Right.
And no one does. And I couldn't afford to be because I ended up as a single mom and worked very, very hard for about 4.5 years or so in marketing. Then finally met my husband who got me back into art, and he's the one that introduced me to comics. So I had picked up a couple comics before then. I read a couple issues of Spawn. Spawn was good. And Todd McFarlane is now my biggest inspiration, probably. Oh, nice. Oh, I believe I have that book too. Yeah, my husband and I met, and he didn't know I drew until a year after he met me. And I didn't know he collected comic books until a year after I met him. And it turned out that we needed some money for car repairs one year. So he took me to Phoenix Comic Con to try to buy some books and trade his collection in, or, you know, whatever have you. And I was introduced to the world of where artists don't necessarily have to starve.
Right.
Right. My mind just went because I saw the fan art and I was like, baby, yeah, I can do that. I can do that. And he's like, what? Really? I said, yeah, no, I really can draw. I can draw. I'm really rusty because I haven't done it in 7 years. But I'm going to go home tonight and draw a Deadpool or something and show you. And he liked it. So then I just started drawing again. And it turned out that he collected more books and we just started getting back into the scene. That was when Walking Dead #1 was hot. And that's the book that we started our whole collection on, was his Walking Dead #1 sketch variant. And I was just really drawn to the art, you know. So then we ended up going to more shows, going to comic shops, and we started working at one comic shop as dealers doing slab books and stuff for CGC. And I'll be honest, though, my first introduction into the industry, I realized immediately that there were a lot of nasty trolls. Like, immediately. It was really toxic. And I thought, wow, dang. That's a story for a whole other time. But we were facing a lot of just crooked, nasty, backstabbing people, like all throughout the way.
Speaking of crooked, nasty, backstabbing people, there are two quick super chats I want to talk to real quick. Mm-hmm. So Kaz5166 says, check out Lone Wolf on Indiegogo. Real great guys that need some help. And yeah, I think Lone Wolf was mentioned on my stream with John Delarose. I think he mentioned that as well. So definitely check that out. And if you haven't watched that stream, that interview was pretty interesting, in my opinion. I think John and I had a good conversation. And then Comic Artist Pro Secrets, thank you very much for your donation, sir. He said he'd like to issue a formal apology to Nasser13 for saying he's always wrong. I was going to say about everything, but then he turned up and made it awkward. Sorry, Nasser. So, speaking of toxic trolling.
Jeez. What trolls?
Yes. So, okay. So I'm sorry to... and Ryan English says for Band-Aids and Tylenol, heart. Thank you, buddy. Thank you. So you and your husband were getting back into the comic scene. You're going to shows. Now at this point, are you selling art at the same time? Like you mentioned doing fan art and stuff like that. Had you started trying to sell pieces or do commission work or anything like that at this point? Or do you do that now?
I did for a long time. I've kind of stopped. But I did for about 4 or 5 years straight. It was so it was 2014 in February when I had my first artist table, and it was actually attached to a local comic book table's booth. And that was my first show doing what I did. At the same time, I was actually taking CGC submissions. I was helping at their booth, and I was selling my fan art. And I took my first 2 commissions at the show. So that was cool. And then I did one more, and at that next show, I got offered a coloring
Hold on one
position.
second. I have a technical issue where I unplugged my headphones. What happened?
What?
What?
What? Do they even
Why?
do that? Why? How do these things work?
Oh my goodness, this is horrible.
Darn
1 second,
technology.
sorry. Okay. That's not it. Okay. Here we go. The professionalism can't be stopped. Can't be stopped. I think okay, I can hear you. I'm so sorry for that.
Oh, that's okay.
I was sitting on the cord, and so then I rotated a little bit, and my leg unplugged it. So that was nice. That was.
Why
nice
do you
good.
have legs? They're in the way, Nick.
I don't know.
Jeez.
I'm trying to get them removed. I'm trying to be trans-ableist, or trans-abled. Different.
That's good.
Yeah, where they just paralyze or remove limbs, because that's how I was supposed to be born.
You can join half your body with a unicorn at the same time, too, right? You can be a trans leg unicornery, and we can all just feed you, bird seed. That's cool. That's accepted nowadays.
Then I can get into every convention.
Yep. I'll hire you at my table. You can be my con babe, is what they call you.
Sounds good. Hopefully you make enough room for my unicorn lower. Well, while I've rudely interrupted in a horrific way, let me just read these 2 chats, and then we'll get back into your story. Gojirify, he'd like to apologize for Comic Artist Pro Secret's apology. Apology accepted for the apology. Bagel Goose says furry vor commissions are where the real money is. I think Bonitis might agree with you. Kaz5166 says, "Are you prepared for Mark Gade?" I am. And hopefully we'll get to talking about the Marky Mark. Oh my goodness, they're French.
Marky Mark.
There we go. How much French do you speak?
I do know a couple words.
You know,
so
E would be and. So Marky Mark is.
All right. I'm Canadian and American and British, I suppose. So.
All right. Well,
a little bit of French in there.
Yeah. Well, let's get back to it. So, you're talking.
Oh yeah, we're at the boring biography part where I just tell you that in a nutshell, right?
Well, you can make it as boring or entertaining as you want. You don't have to tell me everything. I'm just trying to get to know you because, again, I'm so new to all this that every person I interview is a lot of times me encountering them for the first or maybe second time, and if it's the second time, my interaction with them the first time was very limited. So I try and get to know people because that's, part of my job is helping other people hear the story of whoever I'm representing. So
I was just teasing.
Yeah,
that makes sense. That makes sense.
But yeah, so. Oh, it's Spanish. E is Spanish. Kill me. Just kill me off. It's over. Okay, so you go on because your story is what we're here to hear, not me trying to boomer my way through languages that I don't know. Oh my goodness.
All right. Okay. Well, let's get down to the nitty gritty. So
Yeah.
I've been trying to decide all day how much detail I should get into it because honestly, it's in a long story. But do you want to know the glossed over version where I just kind of hit bullet points until I get where I am, or do you want to know like every terrible thing that's happened? It's just a serious question.
Let's hit. I mean that's the way you pitch that second part is very compelling. Every terrible thing that happened. But why don't you hit me with some bullet points, and then maybe we can intersperse some terribleness into our discussion.
Okay.
So hit me with the bullet point version, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. So I'll start with bullet points of crappy moments. How about that? Because that's pretty much the story. We started out
very uplifting.
I know. So at the same time that I was just talking about where I came out with my first art pieces, and then I said the next show I went to, I got offered a coloring gig by another artist who was very well known. Fortunately, the coloring work I did never got my signature on it, and it was done for free. So that was one of my first stabs into the industry, which I hear happens more than you might think. But the only reason I did it was for my signature, and I communicated that.
Oh,
anyways,
and then you got you just got ham-boned right out of that. We'll say
I did, I found out that I'm not the only person that same artist has done that to. And not the only artist that does that. So you get coloring work for free. You charge $1,500 for the commission, then you get it colored by some newbie for free, and then you take their signature off.
And you're not going to name names?
Oh, I don't know, man. I don't know. See, I've kind of avoided naming names for the most part because these people have already done enough to me. I almost don't want to give them the attention.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
That's up to you. I'm just saying this is a safe
I'll drop
place.
some hints. I'll drop some hints. That person worked for Zenescope.
For Zenescope.
So there you go. Yeah, which is the publisher that I started working for much later. I tell people that talk to me about Zenescope artists that I really don't get along with any other artists in Zenescope. There's a couple, there's like maybe 3 or 4 that are okay. But for the most part, they've all said either real mean things to me, they've all called me names because I supported Trump, or stuff like that happened and I got ripped off by a couple. So anyways, glossing over to the next point. Dun, da, da, da. So during that same time, my husband and I, because I came from a marketing background, my husband came from a web development background and a business background, we collaborated forces and we built a mobile app actually for comics called Longbox. And we realized the amount of data entry would be too insane to keep up with. That's what I said that we posted it in the CGC forums for feedback, and we got an immediate trolls from that. And to this day, I still find Longbox trolls. I don't know what their problem is. It's so weird. Their complaint was that the app wasn't good enough. It wasn't fast enough. You know how many titles of comic books there are? Millions. Millions. And they wanted it all immediately. Like, we had to manually type in every name of every single comic book in existence. So we told everybody, pause, it's going to take a moment. And yet still there was so much hate in the community. So that was terrible. Next bullet point. So we work with this comic shop. I'm doing CGC signatures. So is my husband, underneath this other comic shop's authority. And that was just, it turned into a terrible experience, business experience, where the dude was, I thought, just crazy. Like for one, he said that we'd get all this help, and we didn't. It was we caught him kind of backstabbing us, talking crap about us to other creators, because it was all competitive thing, right? He wanted the money and he wanted to use us for our resources and services and not pay us. So that went kind of sour. We weren't happy about that. Then he started spreading rumors about us amongst the community. Next bullet point, since like I told you, this is a long, nasty story. we were still like, whatever. We like comics. It's only one comic shop. This dude is obviously nuts. I'm sure there's plenty of opportunities in the world, in a free country, in a free market. So we continue doing what we're doing. My husband continues slabbing books. I continue going to shows. Okay.
Yep.
And then about a year or something after this, after we do combat a few slabbing trolls, we've seen a lot of stuff in the slabbing industry. All this stuff has come out about Stan Lee, right?
Yeah.
and all the people around him having been corrupt and stuff. One of those people's names.
Let me pause you for a second because so you're talking about slabbing.
Yeah.
The slabbing industry. Pretend that the audience, I mean, I know what you're talking about, but pretend that the audience has no idea what slabbing is, and please tell me, because I really don't.
So it's when you submit your comic books for slabbing, which is a plastic encapsulation to keep the book as a collectible so it doesn't get dust or doesn't get... Yeah, and it's in just a little casing, and it gets a number grade. So like 6.8 or 4.6, and then he goes all the way up to 10.
CGC is the comics grading
company or whatever. Yeah. UGC, PGX, and and CBCS, and I've worked now for all of them, and so has my husband.
So, are you familiar with their attorney, Mark Zaid?
Really? He works for them too?
He has represented, I think, CGC in the past.
Ew.
But
I don't know Mark Zaid, but I will tell you that I've seen some of the most corrupt things happen in the slabbing industry. And I was not happy with most of all CBCS. Was not happy with them. And we signed up after CGC because our CGC people started to start rumors about us, like I said, right? So people were trying to say that we didn't work for CGC anymore. It was mainly my husband. People have a thing for artists where they just fan over artists if you draw good.
Right.
And I find it kind of silly, but because I've never really fanned over I don't fan over people really. But because I drew decent enough or was an artist, people left me out of the conversation a lot. And they liked to attack my husband instead all the time. So everything was always his fault, even if I was involved or not. Sometimes I wasn't. And I was left out of most of the slabbing drama. But anyways, we saw comics that were forged. We saw signatures that were forged. We saw crap happen. We saw trolls happen. Trolls came after us sometimes, and it was a total mess. And CBCS, I equated to selling kitchen knives, and I did not mean that as offensive. I was talking to one of the guys that owned CBCS, and they had sent us 10 forms. We bought a booth at a show to slab books and represent CBCS at that show before they even traveled to shows, before they even did that. That was our idea, to travel to shows. Now they go to every show. And that was another thing that they just kind of jacked. Anyways, they sent us 10 forms, and it was just a jacked up situation. And I called very diplomatically and asked them what was going on. And they said, oh, well, it's your job to sell books and get your own customers. So I said, door to door. And I said, oh, so it's like kitchen knives, like door to door salesman. And they got really offended.
How dare you?
And they were like, no, it's not.
We're dealing with serious business here.
This is comic books. You can't say that about collectibles. And I was like, dude, I'm just like, that's what it is, though. Do you disagree?
Apparently, they have never bought good kitchen knives.
I know.
Because
right?
some of the most effective and really some of the nicest kitchen knives out there are sold door to door. The Cutco knives are fantastic.
I know. Everything used to be sold door to door. It's not a shameful thing. I've gone door to door selling my own business before, passing out business cards. I'm serious. In the heat in Arizona degree weather. I didn't mean that as a shameful thing, but I think that's the minute they started disliking me. Oops. So anyways, that was kind of our business endeavor. Meanwhile, I was just drawing fan art. I started doing colors. That was before I really realized that I was getting ripped off. And then, but I was so excited, you know what I mean? Like, I was so excited to finally do art. And I had given it up for so long. And I was really rusty. I was not near at the skill level that I am now because I've practiced so much. So moving on to the next bullet point. This is turning into a bullet point and all the details. Sorry.
That's how we do it here anyway.
We're moving it along, okay?
Yep.
So then a year or two later, we open up our own comic shop. And once you do that, you have to, we got a diamond account, we got a location, we had a specific time limit, a window of where and when we could find our location. And the trolls continued to come, especially from that old comic shop I told you that we used to work with.
Yes.
So they were actively sending trolls at us from the beginning. And, I think maybe if Clinton was elected, maybe it would have turned out better. for us. Or worse, maybe they would have set our shop on fire. I don't know. But
if she was elected, she would have found a way for the comics book industry to get suicided. I mean, to commit suicide with bullets to the back of the head. So, wouldn't have been good. Wouldn't have been good. Don't ever trust a Clinton.
Don't ever trust a Clinton. So, okay, so then we opened up our comic shop. We had a partner for a little while who we caught skimming books, so that was interesting. Anyways, my husband and I went out on our own, and at this time, we were going to San Diego Comic-Con. I got a table at San Diego Comic-Con as an artist, so my art skill levels were upping. I was getting jobs now. Now I worked as a colorist on a cover under Sal Buscema for ROM with IDW. So that was neat, and people could come into our store. We worked very hard on our store, and we were trying all different innovative things like slabbing. We had a VIP program that was my husband's idea, which ended up getting jacked by some people from other shops, but whatever. And we were trying to keep a collector's corner, and the trolls started to come, and now it started to get a little bit political because my husband and I openly supported the military. We were very vocal in our views. I had a piece of Trump and Hillary in my portfolio. It was a satirical comedy piece. And see, I didn't realize, like, because I am an accepting person. So when I talk to someone about my politics, this was before 2016, you know what I mean? Before Trump got elected. I've always been very open, very understanding, because I don't judge people and I don't care what other people think. So when we were open about our views, being conservative, and also we favored tax cuts for business owners.
No,
because we were business owners ourselves. I know, I know.
How dare you?
I know. And see, it's mind-boggling because once, I mean, the taxes that you have to pay as a business owner hurts. It hurts. We couldn't even hire employees most of the time, even though we needed the help. And we worked so hard at that shop. Unbelievably hard. 13 hours a day hard. Anyways, people started saying really mean things about us. One creator that was going to do a signing at our store canceled because he said something that my husband said on his personal Facebook sounded homophobic. Oh no. And here come all the labels, right?
Yes. Yes.
Elitist. I hated women because I started drawing for Zenoscope. And that was too sexist of me, even though I'm a woman, and that wasn't allowed. It's so hypocritical. So women are supposed to have jobs just like men, but we can't draw attractive women because that makes us evil.
Yeah.
I started getting into arguments.
You can only draw planet-sized women. Because that's what sells books, right? That's what...
For real. No, it doesn't. Oh my gosh, it doesn't. Faith, that book Faith, the book Kim and Kim, and the Asian Superman. We're selling books in the whole store. And what's funny is that we actually pushed all these books. Like, we invested in Kim and Kim. And I think whatever her name is, Mags or whatever, she's a big Comicsgate critic or whatever.
Mags
Visagio, whatever. See, I don't even bother with all the drama. But dang, we pushed Kim and Kim, we pushed Faith, we pushed all of these terrible SJW books because we were trying to be trendy. You know what I mean?
Right.
Turns out all the books suck. They sucked so bad. Nobody wanted them.
Hamper sales when they're not any good.
They were bad. And nobody that looks and acts like Faith comes in the store to buy comics. Like, I can tell you, I'm not. No, they don't.
No, I know. I'm kidding.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to be mean, but but the whole purpose of Faith was to try to cater to that demographic of a woman. Well, tell me one woman that goes into a comic shop that's like Faith. There's just, I mean, maybe one in every 500, maybe, but every comic shop customer was a dude. And they push women. The female is Marvel, whatever, Future's female, but women don't buy books. They don't.
It's still there's this trending perception amongst people outside of nerd communities, and I say nerd communities with all the love because and as you know, I love Warhammer 40K. Played video games my whole life. So the nerd community thing, I think I get a pass. But there's this perception from outside the nerd community that it is that the demographics of it are reflective of society at large, which is a silly, silly thing to say. But they just, it's like such a passive thought is given to it. So then when Anita Sarkeesian comes out and acts like girl gamers have any level of representation approaching male gamers, it's like, of course there are girls who play games. Absolutely. You can find any representation in any community if you dig deep enough. But we're talking about, from you're a marketing person, from a marketing perspective, do you market to the 10 to 25%? No.
Exactly. I mean, how are you going to survive making games if nobody buys your game? Like, if you, that's a big problem I have with that Anita chick, and a lot of chicks, and I don't get along well with with women with the feminist mentality. I don't, because I like strong men, and my husband is a very strong alpha male type, and I think it's completely backwards. But my whole beef is, if you have a problem with something, go out and make it. Don't sit at home and complain about it. Nobody cares. You know what I mean? That's what I'm trying to do. I'm making a book, and I've put a lot of effort into it. So if I had a problem with women, I was drawing the women. That people have a problem with. And you know what I did? I went out and I made my own book.
Exactly.
That's how you fix the problem. If you have a problem with it, don't rag on other people, especially people like local comic shops for ordering it, because they're just small businesses. They're just trying to survive. Like, and I can kind of understand, because I've been to comic shops when my husband first introduced me to comics, and I saw all the very cheesecake women. There was a little red flag, right? That I was like, what is this place? You know, like, what have I gotten myself into? Is this okay? What is my husband getting all weird on me? Like, because this is not how it goes. But no, then I just realized, hey, these are just people trying to sell books. And as a business owner, I know that the cheesecake covers are sometimes that's the only thing that'll get you by.
Right.
You can't survive on comics, not alone. There's the profit margins too low. The content sucks too bad. And so you can't sell the books. DC and Marvel, I can't tell you how many books I returned of Rebirth when we launched our whole store on the backbone of Rebirth, when Rebirth came out with DC, which was May 2016. So, but anyways, I'll continue my story a little bit so we get to the point.
Hold on 1 second.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to hit these super chats real quick. Gaz5166 says, Mike's still mad the Malin militia keeps winning. And then he also says, Nasser is a nice, handsome young man. Jay Ishiro Finney says, first wave of Comicsgate was mostly superheroes. As a fantasy writer, Mindy, do you think second wave Comicsgate will start replacing what we lost when 90s Vertigo died?
Ooh, so are you talking Sandman?
I don't know.
I think that's 90s Vertigo, isn't it? I think people are going to replicate what they miss and what they want to see, and what they like. I already see that happening, you know. So 90s Vertigo, I'm going to say I think that was Sandman. And I may be wrong, but I'm a little spotty sometimes in the history of comic books. Like I said, my husband's the one that introduced me to it.
Right.
And I was never really into them as a kid. So I learned a lot when I was at my store, but there are some spots in history where I'm a little, weak. 90s Vertigo, I'm going to say I think it was Sandman. And I've been asked if my book is anything like Sandman. And I think I haven't read all of Sandman. There's some books that I purposefully ignore because I don't want to be accused of ever regurgitating similar storylines and characters.
Yep.
That's one of them. But I think it'll be better. Boom, 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 boom.
Okay.
Boom.
And Bagel Goose says, can you give Andrew Gluck less power? I will try. I'll see what I can do on that front. Kaz5166 says, can you tell me your favorite episode of Star Wars? I don't know if he's talking to me or you, but mine, oh gosh. I don't really care for many, if any of them, even the originals. I've never been a big fan. What about you?
I've never really been a big fan of Star Wars either. I've fallen asleep through half of them, no matter how many times I've tried to watch them. Sorry, EDS. I'm sorry. I'm a Star Trek fan. Hey, you know what? People are answering me. Sandman, Hellblazer, Transmetropolitan Horror, Urban Fantasy, Sci-Fi. Okay, about the 90s Vertigo. Yeah, Hellblazer is cool. The reboot wasn't so good, though. The Rebirth reboot. Anything Rebirth wasn't as good. Transmetropolitan is very interesting, yes. Haven't read all of it, but I've looked at it. Okay, now, Nick, back at you. Just wanted to cap that off.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Star Wars.
Sorry. Yeah, I really don't, I don't know. Yeah, I can't answer which one's my favorite because I really just get pissed off every time I watch any of them. So Rocket Ship says evil capitalists thinking they're entitled to the fruits of their labor. Yeah, I know. Isn't that just, that's the dangerous opinion of the day, that I should keep what I make and get to do with it what I want. Kaz5166 says women love erotica. It's porn for men. Huge market. Yes, absolutely it is. You can see it in every grocery store. The most common, I think that's probably the most common book titles sold in a grocery store is erotica, and that should be telling. That should be telling. It's the most accessible literature on the planet. Because you don't have to go to a bookstore for it. You can just get it next to your cereal. Marsupial Gamer says, I've owned a business for 15 years, and when my PhD lefty sisters say the rich don't pay enough taxes, I remind them that I pay more taxes than they make. It's always great when someone who's never made any money tells you how much people who do make money pay, isn't it? It's just lovely.
Yeah.
Bagel Goose says new Marvel bestseller, Faith the Nudist Edition. Oh,
no.
Never. Not even once. Not once should that occur. And then finally, Clinging Mars says favorite Star Trek episode and thoughts on STD, which I can only assume they mean sexually transmitted diseases. So that's for you.
Oh, thank you for gracing me with that.
No, the Star Trek episode, because you said you're a Star Trek fan.
Question. I love Star Trek. Oh, okay. So, favorite episode, guys? That's a ridiculous question. How can you even ask that question, man? It's just too hard. But you know what? There is one that I really like, because Janeway is probably my favorite character. One of my favorite characters. And there's one episode, I think it's called Dream or something, where they come across a ship and it has people in little capsules that are asleep but alive, and they try to investigate it, and it turns out there's some entity, I forget exactly, but it has corrupted their dreams and it's keeping them in a coma, and Janeway has to go, and it embodies everything you fear. So it's that person is dreaming their worst nightmare for eternity, endlessly, while they're stuck in this chamber. So Janeway has to be all brave and like a boss, go and confront it and have zero fears and talk it down. And that's awesome. That's one of my favorites.
Very cool. I have only passively watched. I like the Star Trek movies. Okay. Even like all of them. I'm not going to say they're all good or whatever, but I enjoy the Star Trek movies. I never really got into the shows that much, Next Generation and all that. Little too communist for me.
It's very militant. If you like logical thinking and you like the way the military operates with their, hierarchies and chains of command, then you'd probably like it. But if you give it a shot sometime, they all have their different feels. Deep Space Nine is really good too. I like Deep Space Nine. Cisco's kind of the captain with the edge. He's a little darker than the rest. That's good.
Okay.
Frankies are fun.
Okay. Well, maybe. But see, I'm like a bad fan because I also like the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies, which I hear I'm not allowed to do that. But,
no, you're not allowed.
But
I smite you for disagreeing.
That's good. Yeah, I'll take it. But okay, so why don't you go back to your story? I'm trying to
Okay.
remember where we were. So you were.
I remember.
Yes, you were running the shop,
Yes.
and you had. Wait, what? Never mind. We'll deal with that chat in a little bit. I don't. Wait, what is this? It says, of you two, who is more clean to go to a dough show?
Doug's show.
Oh, Doug's show. I've been on Doug's show.
Me too. So I guess it's whoever was on last is least clean because we spoke with Doug.
Okay. So when were you on?
I just not that long ago, actually. Just a couple weeks ago.
Okay, so I think I might have been on just a little bit before you, but it wasn't.
Okay.
I mean, I was only on recently as well, and only because a bald Armenian idiot defamed me on Doug's show.
Oh no! Oh my gosh, I missed that one.
Oh yeah, you can go watch Doug's interview with Maddox, and you can see Maddox's response to my very innocent question, inviting him on the show.
Oh,
And,
I think I heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
You
so,
came on after I did.
Oh, okay. So I'm less
Believe.
clean then.
Yes, you are the less clean one.
I'm the least clean, the great unclean one. I'll take it.
Just wash your hands after the show. It's okay.
Okay, so you own you're the comic shop, or we're at the comic shop. Okay. Please continue.
Okay. Oh, okay. So at this time, the environment was getting a little bit more political, but I don't think Marvel had really caught into the politics yet. I was at San Diego, and out of whatever so many thousands of submissions at the show, that's when they were still going to San Diego, which they're not anymore. They didn't. And they were doing portfolio reviews. And so I submitted my little sketchbook, and I got asked for a portfolio review.
Okay.
Which is really cool because it's like 10 people out of however many thousand, submissions. So I cried. I was so happy. And I thought, my dreams are going to come true and all that. That maybe I'd one day work for Marvel. Now they say portfolio review, but I'm a very assertive person, and I have never let a job escape me ever, especially because I was a single mom and I've worked my butt off, and so I never ever let a job escape me. So when I was in this portfolio review, I was very assertive, and I treated it like a job, right? Treated it like a job interview, because that's all it is anyways. They just want to keep tabs on you.
Yep.
But then I found it very disappointing. The whole experience was very disappointing. I didn't get good feedback, or not good feedback, because I don't care if they gave me bad feedback. That would have just been better for me. I could improve on what I needed to improve on. It was that there was no feedback. It was very, very vague. And it was hard to get anything really out of them. And then what follows that is that you are encouraged to pick some out of 10 or 14 or something samples, do maybe as many as you can for free. And prove to them why you work for Marvel. What I found out later, about 2 years later, I ran into another artist that said, oh yeah, here's my portfolio from my never-ending interview with Marvel, and showed me, 45 pieces. And they say, oh yeah, they just keep looking at them, giving me good feedback and saying, keep on going, but they never actually hire me. And that was not the first time I heard that. So I found out later that Marvel just gives you this never-ending interview. The same time they were going through outsourcing and starting to outsource more. So I don't even think they were really interested in hiring you. The whole thing about the comics realm, the industry, that I learned in breaking through is that they are very interested in online likes. They're very online. Okay. If you've got a good big Instagram account that's, they think could be all juicy and translate into sales for them, because you're bringing your followers that you worked hard on earning into their industry, and now they can pay you crappy page rates, which by the way have been dropping at Marvel, and just convert all your followers to sales on their products, which they make most of the profit off of, then that's okay. They'll hire you, but only until you have 1 million followers.
Right.
Okay.
And you know what's funny about that is I was in an argument, which happens to me with alarming regularity. I have to start a sentence with I was in an argument. But I was in an argument with a comic writer, and he was he's producing some comic, who cares? But he was talking about how he was calling a bunch of people racist, and I was like, that's an interesting approach to courting new customers. And he said, I don't have to do that. My publisher does that. What's great is that these guys haven't figured out. The Comicsgate community has figured this out, that if you build up a platform, that you can then have a market that you talk to all the time, and that market is something that you should build and nurture and grow, because the people want to hear you, and then if you produce a product, they'll be more likely to check it out, because you get to invite them, and you've built up trust with that community, and that's a great thing. The funny thing is, Marvel has also figured this out to some extent, as you're telling me now. Like they're basing their hires off of the number of Instagram followers that an artist may have, because of course they want the artist to put their page, a page of their work up on Instagram and say, hey, my new book is coming out. It's under Marvel. You can find it in your local comic shop. Please go buy it. It's funny though, because there's a disconnect between the direct market that like a Comicsgate person has, and this is not limited to Comicsgate, y'all. If you can check out any number of fan communities of any different of any subject, it's why companies want Twitch streamers to sell gaming products. It's because they have a direct market. The funny thing is, Marvel has almost figured this out, but Marvel doesn't seem to realize that putting themselves in as an intermediary makes it an indirect market. They're still not buying from the creator. They still have to go to a comic shop and then find the creator's book amidst other things and then pick it up. Whereas, again, with a fan community, they're going directly to the creator. They know the creator is getting rewarded for it directly. It's like they know, but they just can't get there. And I wanted to get your opinion on this as a marketing person. It kind of triggered me when you were talking about the never-ending interview, the lack of good feedback that you were getting from Marvel. In your opinion, is it the case that the people running Marvel currently just literally don't know how to do business?
I said this on one of my last videos on YouTube. I think Marvel is too smart to do what they're doing just in chaos. Like, there's this perception that maybe Marvel is undergoing some form of just complete chaos. Like, they don't know what to do. They don't know what to do online. The higher ups are just scrambling all over the place. And I don't think that's the case, because I think people that have companies that have as much money as they do have some kind of intent. And they hire people like me when I worked in marketing to market them and do their PR and brand them, do their branding. So I know that they have got people doing this. And Disney is the same way. I know they have marketing professionals running their social media and their PR and their branding. They've got studios full of these people. So to tell me that they're sitting there like with a chicken with their head cut off is kind of, I think is not accurate. Now, if you're telling me that they don't know how to do business, as in they don't know how to talk to everybody diplomatically and leave politics at the door, I think that it's very, more than likely it's intentional, very intentional what they're doing politically. And that's got to be coming from, if I were to take a stab in the dark, I'd say they've got investors that are purposefully trying to push out a leftist agenda. Sure. If you look at the history of comics, they would see that families and kids would read the Sunday funnies in the newspaper more than they would read the main article. Comics have always been political. So is it no surprise that that you see in every truck stop a Marvel and a Disney hat or a shirt, their merchandise? It's like some people treat EVS's YouTube as like a cash cow because he's got the biggest YouTube stream in Comicsgate. Okay. Marvel is everybody else's cash cow. They see Marvel as, and DC, whatever, they see comics in general as what it is now, as the biggest stream in the country to get a message out. They have a presence in every store, every supermarket, every gas station, every truck stop. So they do know how to do business. They've got their merchandise everywhere. They're brilliant with their marketing. They make stuff for kids. They make stuff for every age group, especially the kids, because the kids grow up loving their stuff and wearing their Batman hats, whether they know what Batman stands for or not.
Right.
Okay? It's the mentality. It's indoctrinating the youth. And it's getting into their brains. It's a brand. Okay, they're branding. Their superheroes are not just superheroes. The people that wrote the superheroes and drew the art are a part of history now. They're not part of the character. The character is a message. It looks pretty and it talks, but it's really a message. This is marketing. This is in any industry. It's marketing. So to say they don't know how to do business, I think it's almost not the right question. It's, yeah, they know how to do business. Why are they doing business the way that they are?
Sure. Absolutely.
Why are they pushing the message that they are? And I think that that's not because they're stupid. I don't think that's because they're incompetent. If they were incompetent, they wouldn't be the giants that they are now. It's because they want to do this intentionally. Or they are just so in love with their politics and they've got some Trump derangement syndrome that they're projecting that into their brand, and they feel that that is rightful to do. They think that that's the right thing to do, and it is justified, and because they have such a wide audience, that they are. Does that answer your question? I think it's intentional.
Okay. Yeah,
and
I think it does. So what I want to do is I want to do a pushback question for you. And then I want you to think about it for just a minute while I read the super chats.
Okay.
Okay, so my pushback question would be accepting your point that, yes, of course, Marvel is good at branding. DC is good at branding. And branding has been amazingly ramped up. I was born in the early 80s, and we had, brands, the G.I. Joes, Transformers. These were big iconic brands, of course. But now it's different because now the branding is in every product. It's not, you don't go to the store to buy a G.I. Joe, or you don't go to the store to buy a Batman action figure. You go to the store to buy a Lego Batman set, right? You go to the store to buy a Batman bed set. You go to the store to buy a Batman everything. And then if you don't like Batman, there's a brand for you within another brand still. So Lego's got both Marvel and DC, along with Lord of the Rings, along with Star Wars. They don't have Star Trek yet. We'll wait till that happens. But anyway, so the branding is completely different. So recognizing that they're good at branding, they obviously have the tools to be good at marketing. But I'm just wondering if you mentioned that they're as big as they are, but I want you to answer the question, are they still good at actually doing business? Not just branding and marketing, but actually functioning as a business. Or are they just riding on the backs of the previous generation of people running Marvel? So if you could think about that for a minute and just answer that as soon as I get done with these super chats. So Keck7Go says, praise be to Father Nurgle. His blessings are the best. Comic Artist Pro Secret says, how many Armenians does it take to screw in a light bulb? Then he follows up with 2, but only if they're very small. Okay. Darth Bobcat says, you stole my joke from your chat, Uncle E. And then Comic Artist Pro Secrets says, why did they establish a ministry of the Navy in Armenia when they don't have a sea? And then he said, to spite Azerbaijan for establishing a ministry of culture. Ooh, that's just rude. And then Kaz5166 says, Marvel is in cocoon as long as they call us Nazis. Okay. And then he said, Kaz5166 says, Bagel Goose is a nice guy. And then Comics Artist Pro Secret says, Armenian EVS has 6 pies and gives half to Nick Rekieta. How many Armenian pies does he have left? and he follows with 5.5 pies. Well, thank you.
You're just talking about pies. You're silly.
You talk about what you love. You talk about what you love.
Mm-hmm.
EVS loves pie. I love pie. I love apple pie. Okay, so what do you make of my pushback?
Okay, so I know it's such a broad subject. I think they are riding on the backs of the previous generation because the previous generation already adopted them. So, I mean, I can tell you the easiest marketing, the most effective marketing, is to get into the hearts of people and then ride off of referrals. Right. There's a whole section of marketing called referral marketing. So basically, it's all the people getting their kids into what they just assume is the same stuff as what they loved when they were kids. Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, it's definitely riding off of the previous generation, and everything now because they just they're changing the way things are done. I guess they tried to be they're just trying to be way too PC about it, but it's failing. We know that it's failing. But that's why I think that they're pulling away from comics and they're going into movies because movies make you more money. It's all about money.
Oh, of course, and it should be at the end of the day. What's funny to me is that I think it's not just Marvel and DC. We're seeing this all over various industries, but I think they've miscalculated. Mm-hmm. I think it really is about money. I think the social justice sort of position and the purity of it. I think there are true believers, absolutely, but I think the executives that are greenlighting the true believers' voices, that are pushing this stuff out into the open. I think the executives are just making a miscalculation because they have no idea what they're dealing with. They think that this message is going to sell. They hear the wrong voices on Twitter, and then they wonder when their sales aren't going up in various sectors, no matter how virtuous they are, and then they get suckered on firing their own people when someone uses the tactics against them. We saw that with James Gunn, and we saw it come back. I don't know what the story behind the decision on Chuck Wendig was, but we saw him get caught up in the same standards that were being set for other creators. And that's, that's the ropes. That's the world you guys want to build. I mean, go build it. Please count me out and let me just do what I do without bothering me.
Well, here's the thing. I think that people who grew up on comics, all the good comics, like, what many of the people in the chat here probably grew up on, all the good stories, Jeff Johns, the stuff that they're making about making in movies now, that was good back then in the actual books. Those people, I think, are intelligent and they enjoy good stories. Unfortunately, I think there's too many stupid people in the world, and they are a bigger crowd, and they do spend sometimes more money. So I think what they're doing is partly intentional. I really do. And I think that they're purposefully moving away from comic books. They're trying to get rid of the comic books and adapt towards people who don't read books, who just want to consume movies and merchandise that don't even read books, that are not educated.
I think what's going to happen soon-ish, maybe. I think this is I think this is in the thoughts of the Disney executives right now. If I had to guess, is, all right, we bought Marvel, we've got the IP we want. How do we offload the comic industry back to something else and keep a license for all of the IP for the MCU movies that we're making?
Right.
I mean, there's no way Disney cares about the comic book wing of Marvel outside of the IP. In my opinion, I don't see them doing that. And because the MCU largely seems to, it stays pretty safe. It stays pretty safe on the political spectrum. They haven't gone full lefty yet on the MCU stuff. Even on the Netflix TV shows. I mean, they'll have some stuff in there, but it's basically hovering around blockbuster mainstream Hollywood levels. It's not gone like the full route that the comic books have. So I think they're going to be looking to offload the publishing arm of Marvel at some point while maintaining or retaining a license in all of the IP.
Here's a thought that I just thought of that I have not heard before on the internet. What if they already decided a long time ago that they wanted to kill publishing books in print, and they just wanted to make the people in the industry feel good so that they would offload all the work onto the people, the writers and the creators that were hot stuff, that had a big online following, and just wanted to just say, hey, why don't you go with it? You do what you want to do. And they're just riding on the backs of those creators' followers, like Gail Simone's army. And they've stepped back a long time ago. I mean, if I were a manager, I'm going to tell you that's honestly what I would have done. I would have said, you know what? They've already got a fan base, and these creators I'm talking about that are the SJWs now.
Right.
I would have just said, you know what? It's your project. You know, we're trying to make a business, and you want to go paint in the corner. That's fine. You go paint in the corner. You got some fans in here that come every Wednesday and buy your paintings. Great. You go ahead and you just take this. And and maybe a manipulative business owner would make them feel good. Oh, you're so awesome. Oh, you're so awesome. Keep doing what you're doing. I'll give you a promotion or whatever. And they just let those people be responsible for their rising or downfall. Maybe it's not really Marvel and DC. Maybe they're just kind of pushing all the responsibility onto people like Gail Simone and Bill Sinkwitz and Chuck Wendig. Maybe they're doing that on purpose. And then these people are either going to rise or fail depending on their own actions and their own responsibilities and not even touch Marvel. Maybe that's what this all is.
Yeah, I think that's certainly a possibility because I feel like Disney got the Marvel publishing arm as like the like the side of cottage cheese that came with your steak. It's like they cared about the movie IP. That's what they wanted. And then they got this other division because you can't just I'm sure the people the Marvel was like, no, you have to take the whole company. You can't just buy our IP, take the whole company, and because we want the resources. So that's certainly possible. So what I want to do, I'm gonna hit a couple super chats real quick, and then I would like to talk about your experiences with Diamond, because this is one thing that I think you bring an interesting perspective of all the people I've interviewed in owning a comic shop, having to work with Diamond. I want to talk a little bit about the overshipping thing, because that's just been an interesting subject. We talked a little bit about that in a private message, but let's talk about it here. And then I just want your perspective on that type of stuff. And then I have some questions about that. But let me hit a few of these chats real quick.
Hey, Nick, while you hit those super chats, I'm going to super run real quick and turn off my heater because it's getting super hot in here.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll be right back in 2 seconds.
Sounds great. Okay, so Midnight Cherry TV says, I'm glad my Comic Artist Pro Secret Super Chat money are going to Rekieta. Me too. I'm very happy about that. Thank you. Kaz5166 says, Midnight TV is our guy. Gojirify says, have you heard back from Mark Zaid yet? I assume you're asking if I have heard back from my interview request with Mark Zaid, which I did. Mark Zaid neglected to answer me for 6 days for my interview request.
Okay.
Hi, welcome back.
Sorry.
I'm telling a Mark Zaid story. So Mark Zaid did not answer my email that he asked me to send him for 6 days. However, when my video made it to his eyes, he immediately responded that he would not be coming on my show because I am an idiot and he does not deal with idiots. Mark Zaid has quickly become my favorite lawyer, mainly because he has set himself up. He has set up the Diversity in Comics lawsuit for him to me. This is only for him to me to be like ridiculously higher stakes than it ever was. It's obviously high stakes for Zach. It's obviously high stakes for Mark Waid. But just me being a commenter on the internet, I now have one of the most hilariously prominent lawyers in Washington, D.C. who sues White Houses, making fun of me and saying I'm dumb. So if he loses, guys, I will work. If your boy Zach wins or settles positively, I will be gloating for 6 straight hours on a live stream. It's going to be great. I'm going to do nothing but laugh at Mark Zaid, and we're going to go through all of his tweets and make fun of all of them, even if they're right, just because he said that I know nothing about the law. So now he has to win. He has to. Otherwise, he looks really stupid. And I can't wait for that moment. I can't wait for it. So, yes, I have heard back from Mark Zaid. And at the end of this lawsuit thing, and I don't think it'll be as long as anyone thinks. I still see a settlement on the horizon, although they're putting up a very strong front. We'll be talking about those emails that he sent me, because he sure had some funny things to say in them. And there will be a gloat stream. I'm pretty confident that there will be a gloat stream. We'll just say that. Next, Bagel Goose says Kaz5166 is a cutie pie. We have, let's see, James Dean, creator of Conflict, says, hi, Mindy and Nick. Disney will license out their printing. Other Disney verticals are making a higher % of profit. They always wanted IP only. Yeah, I think I agree with you. Dank Plank says, Mindy, explain Sana Amanat. Amanat.
Okay.
And
I don't really know much about Santa Amanat.
I don't know anything other than I know that I misidentified Santa Amanat because, again, I'm so far out of the comics industry that I thought Santa Amanat was the Brazilian guy calling for Comicsgate people to be jailed for their opinions. But it turns out it's actually like a Marvel executive of some sort. So I don't know anything either. JP4 says, can't believe I'm watching Legal Talk after midnight. EVS has led me to many places and things I never knew of. Well, welcome to it. Welcome to it. Okay, so I want to talk to you about being a comic store owner and having to deal with a monopoly in Diamond. And that's, it's very salacious. So talk to me about Diamond Distribution and how, what it was like working with them and how that worked out.
Diamond, the most terrible company on the planet. Hey. So I was trying to look for photos because I told you last week or something I'd look for photos. I didn't find many, and here's why. There were some horrible ones. So Diamond is terrible at damages and not getting your orders right and sometimes late, which as a comic shop owner, you live pretty much paycheck to paycheck. There's not much profit in it. I mean, do the math. If you're selling a $4 book and your discount is 50%, so you get $2 that book, how many $2 books do you have to sell to pay $1,000 rent, $200 electricity bill, maybe in the winter, because in the summer of Arizona it's $1,000, a $400 internet bill, because as a business everything is more expensive, including internet and phone and utilities and all of that. That's why businesses should get tax cuts so they can actually afford to pay their bills and hire employees. Yes. But anyways, it takes a lot of books. That's why you see comic shops have to sell other products to be able to maintain their store. Not to mention all the labor involved. So then when you have Diamond on top of it, totally screwing up your orders. And I looked through emails between Diamond and myself earlier today, and they were terrible. I was saying this needs to be fixed. This week, 24 copies of this were damaged. 24 copies of this were damaged. We're missing our 2 high-end variants. Blah, 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 and the list goes on. And this happened every week. So you cannot depend on them at all. I mean, seriously, damages were our worst thing. I heard that Diamond, the origins of Diamond was that it kind of came in like a mob. It kind of strong-armed the other companies out of the industry, if I understand correctly.
Yeah, and I've
Yeah.
heard about that, and I'm gonna look into this, but I've heard that there was some sort of lawsuit involved in basically muscling everyone out, and then some people tried to do like an antitrust suit against Diamond, and it failed. So I don't know that. I don't know the origin story. I don't have Diamond issue 0. But what I'm going to hopefully do is look into that a little more. So if you guys are interested in that topic, I'm going to try and find an antitrust legal specialist. It's a little bit outside of my normal scope, being a small town attorney. I don't do trust busting. But I'm going to try and find someone and do some legal analysis and an interview on that. So keep in mind that I'm looking for that. If you get tempted to like spam me with questions about it, it's on the radar of things I want to talk about, and I'll just basically be looking for the right person to interview to discuss it. So anyway, sorry not to interrupt your
No,
story.
not at all. Not at all. Yeah. I mean, I used to take pictures of damages, and because nothing was being done about it and it only seemed to get worse, my husband and I took it to another level, and we ended up posting all of the damage boxes every week to our Facebook.
Oh, how'd
and
that
also
go?
because they finally kind of went, oops, and started fixing their act a little bit, because now the world could see it, and the customers were sympathizing with all the crap we had to deal with, because it was every week, and there were so many pictures on my phone. I had trouble uploading them all to each email to send to them. So that's why I just said, here's a Facebook album that's available to the public on our store page. You can go check out what was this week. And they didn't like that.
And as a local comic shop owner, I mean, you're really like you mentioned that they would have late shipments and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and your bloodline, your lifeline, whatever you want to call it, I don't know what the term is anymore, is getting those critical issues on release day, right? Like you have to have them. Because otherwise people will go to the next shop, even if
Exactly.
and true fans will travel quite a ways, even if there's not another shop next door.
Yes. Yeah, I know. Exactly. And we also expanded to online sales. So we were doing online sales. And if you don't have it listed before anybody else, you're screwed, because exactly, it's not a bottomless well of sales. There are X amount of people that buy Diamond each week. There's X amount of people that buy Marvel, X amount of people that buy Image. And once they're tapped, they're tapped. So you have to get your stuff on time. There was one time our new releases didn't come till Thursday evening. And when that happens, it means you eat the entire bill, which on a normal week is about $1,600. Sometimes it's gone up to $2,600, $2,800 a week. On a good week, like after our rebirth returns, which they credited us for, $800 was the lowest I think I paid in a week for the books. So you eat that bill. That comes out of your pocket.
Yeah,
if you have employees and taxes, then that employee gets fired that week because you can't pay them.
right.
That's what happens.
And then you have to inventory books that people don't want anymore because they've already bought them.
Yeah, the storage space. That's why there's so many sales. I can't tell you the labor. And when we had our shop, Diamond's POS system went down. So here's the thing about Diamond that will drive you crazy. So there's a barcode on every book, right?
Yeah.
And it's only Diamond's scanner can scan that barcode. No other scanner. It's ridiculous. So you have to have their POS system, or else you cannot inventory whatsoever, which is a scam. It's a total scam. They only do that for the extra cash grab. So my husband and I, because they had their POS system down when we opened our shop, and I think they told us we were one of 3 shops in the entire country that opened at this time during the 6 to 9 months where they had no POS system available. So we did everything manually, and including having a separate online store from an in-store store. And it was the worst job I've ever had in my life. I'm not even joking. And I've done a lot of jobs. That was the worst one.
There's a train. There's a train. It's got all the Diamond shipments that were missed. Okay, so one of the issues that's come up quite a bit Oh, real quick. Siren Jag says, call Zayd an idiot the good way, like Ren from Ren and Stimpy, please. I heard it once and now I want more. You idiot! You idiot! There. And then Gojirify says, Mark Zayd does antitrust. I'll ask him on the show. Okay, so Diamond. One of the issues that's come up repeatedly on Twitter that I've seen a lot of is this idea of overshipping. So can you talk to overshipping? So for those of you in the audience who may not know, overshipping is where Marvel is doing a release, and Marvel, so the local comic shop will put in an order for X amount of books. We'll say 10 books for the sake of ease. And Marvel thinks that the book will sell higher than that for whatever reason. And so instead of sending 10 books, they will send 15, 20, some percentage higher than what was ordered. And the idea is that Marvel thinks that that this book will do particularly well, that the comic shop may not know something about it. Maybe it's got a special new character or whatever. And so they're going to overship that book. Now, my understanding is that the comic shop doesn't pay for the extra books that get shipped. Is that so? Talk to me from there. Tell me, one, tell me if I'm right or wrong, and then two, tell me what happens next.
No, I'm saying that's not even an issue. It's not. Honestly, like, you're telling me that Diamond's giving away free product, right?
That's what I'm hearing, is that
essentially, yeah, and that doesn't happen. I'm going to tell them that doesn't happen. You know, it just doesn't, because they're stingy as it is. They want money, so they don't give away free product.
So you order 10 books, you get 10 books.
You'd get 8 probably,
but
still be charged for 10.
But there are comic stores out there posting pictures. For example, the most recent one I saw was Iceman #1, where a comic store ordered 5 books. I think they got like 15, and they sold like 2 over the course of the next like several weeks.
You know, now I think about it, maybe that happened once or twice. But it honestly, I think it's just because this is what I think happens in a Diamond warehouse. This is how I think it goes. So you go in there and there's a bunch of just workers shifting books, sorting orders. There's a lot of labor. And then they read the list and they go, oh, one high-end variant. Great. And they grab the book by the spine. And then they throw the high-end variant in the box, because for some reason, always the high-end variant, the variant that you pay 200 bucks for to get that one book, the 1 in 200 or 1 in 100, always ends up terribly damaged. So that's what I think happens. I think they grab the one book by the spine, they take it and they throw it in the box. Because ironically, the ones that aren't expensive don't tend to be damaged. And that's what I think it is. I just think it's carelessness and recklessness, and people can't count. I think that's what it is. And, sure. It's been like 2 years or something since my shop has been open now. We closed down to have a baby. And because I was tired of the work, to be honest, right, I wanted more for my future. And comics were just not selling very well. But I don't think that maybe it's happened since we've shut down, but I just think it's an overall problem of being incompetent. And most of the time you'll get books like you'll order 16 of Green Lantern and you'll get 16 of Batman instead. And if you do the inventory very carefully, you'll see that they got the number right, but they couldn't read the title to save their life.
Yeah, so. What I've been seeing is that, and maybe this is a trend that's been increasing since your shop is closed down, is that basically Marvel is paying Diamond to ship extra books. So the comic stores aren't eating that cost, although they apparently have to pay the shipping costs. But I don't know. I'm not a comic store owner.
That might be a little bit of, that might be a little marketing trick, because they're obviously just not selling books anymore, so they might be just throwing some in there to try to as free marketing. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. But it's not a financial burden on the shop if they're giving away free product. If anything, that's just nice free product that you can profit off of a little bit more, which maybe might incentivize the comic shop to sell more of that book, because they think maybe if we order more of this title, we might get another extra 20 copies or whatever, but maybe.
Sure. So here's the question, the ultimate question. Whatever the case with overshipping or shipping damaged products or shipping late products may be with Diamond, where do you turn when Diamond keeps failing as a local comic shop? What's your other alternative?
So that's one of the reasons why my husband and I kept going to shows, because we started to realize pretty quickly, because Rebirth was what we launched our shop on, and then Rebirth started failing in August. September is when we made all the returns, and it had failed before then, and we opened in May. So during those couple of months, we realized we needed to branch out. So at the shows, we made friends with a lot of creators that ended up backstabbing us, unfortunately, or doing whatever they do, and worked our way up there. And we were friends with a lot of them. We were professional with a lot of them, or we were professional with all of them. You know what I mean? And we would bring back signed books and get sketches from afar from our loyal customers that couldn't go to the show but wanted to, maybe, so they would have us go and get that for them and then bring it back to the store, and we'd get convention exclusives and put it in the store. Sure. And that ended up helping a lot. Plus my art money of being able to go to shows and sell my art was starting to pick up. So that was where we made our extra cash, and online sales, and we worked so hard to make all of that happen. But that's what we did. We started focusing on indie books and creator signatures, and we went out of our way to support the comics creators, which is so ironic because here they are bashing their fans and now acting like they did when we went out of our way to support them. So yeah, that's what we did. There's nowhere else to turn with Diamond. That's it. That's the end of the road.
Yeah, so if you want to carry Marvel and DC books in the store, like just the regular run of the books, obviously if you're going to conventions and picking up convention exclusives and stuff, that's a different market that you're talking about. But you're just bread and butter. I want Captain America number 78 to come to the store. You've got to go through Diamond. There's no other option.
You do. But like San Diego and a lot of the bigger shows, they will have DC exclusives of the same books.
Sure.
But just more rare. So they'll have the same books that you're talking about, but they'll have convention exclusives of a key issue or a number one or something like that. So you can still get DC and Marvel at shows. Yeah. But those are actually going to be the ones that sell probably better than the comic books you have inside your store that you get from Diamond, if any of the Marvel DC books sell at all, you know?
Right. Gotcha. So is there a possibility of doing a boutique comic shop that doesn't do the the normal shipped books, so to speak, but they just do the exclusives, or would that have to be like in addition to some other business?
No, that's actually what we were going for. Right on the nose. You hit it. We considered ourselves a collector's shop because of that. And we had a little sign up on our window that said signings, upcoming signings and stuff. And that's what we pushed, exactly what we pushed. We even have been called a boutique. But then politics happened, and then we were starting to be called elitists for not catering to everybody. They took that as some sort of twisted insult, and they said because we had a collector's corner in the shop where we kind of roped off that were for the really exclusive, signed, expensive books, right, that we didn't want kids to touch, so we put a little like roped off area. They said that they twisted it and they blew it up, and they said we didn't allow kids in our store, which is not true. And we had a VIP program that would come to signings, and we gave them a little club card and everything, and they said that was elitist. And then the politics started crashing down over our heads. Sure. So yeah, it was possible, but that's exactly what we were going for. And because of that, we were our own little niche, and people really digged us. Like we have some really awesome customers that still talk to us now because they liked what we sold, you know?
Right, and that's what happens when you just build up trust with any customers in any industry, is that you build loyalty by being a hard worker, by doing what people ask you to do, and by doing the thing that they didn't ask you to do but would have if they had thought of it. Right, that's the key to being a standout business, is having that extra step. Yeah, like, you didn't know you want this, but here it is. and now you
That
do.
is that's very much my husband too. You know, he'd be standing outside of cons on the floor. I've even done it with him before too, standing in long lines, getting things signed and sketched, recording it on his phone so he could share it with them, going through, 3 hours of waiting in line. And that we went through a lot of effort to try to make everybody happy, but it wasn't enough for the left.
No, it never
No.
is. The
No.
left is insatiable. Okay, so I want to switch gears in a second, but I've got two super chats to go through real quick, and then what I want to talk about karma. So Kaz5166 says Comicsgate ride or die. I assume you mean, are you in Comicsgate? Is that the? I mean.
How far are you willing to go in Comicsgate?
Yeah. Well, and so do you consider yourself a part of Comicsgate? I think that was, we talked about that a little bit. I think you do, but I don't want to put words in your mouth.
I do.
Okay. And so I have a follow-up to that, but let me say to Hoosier Highway says Diamond was a prescient name for a monopoly. Absolutely. They learned from the best, didn't they? So you're in Comicsgate, but what I would like to know, because what I always like to know is, what does Comicsgate mean to you? Like, what is it? Because there's no standard definition, because it's a ground up movement. It's fans and stuff like that. So what is Comicsgate for you? What is it?
So I find Comicsgate fascinating. To me, it reminds me of the Image Revolt a little bit. For me, I mean, and we didn't even get through my whole story, and we don't have to, but I can tell you just briefly, it gets worse from there. We had creators say that they didn't want to be seen with us in public anymore, that DC was looking over their shoulder because we were posting stuff about Trump online, and that was too controversial. I was told I was being blacklisted. I had people tell me they were going to blacklist me, and that we were being too offensive, and on and on and on. And that meanwhile, that comic shop owner and all the slab trolls and the long box troll just compiled, and then they realized that we were Trump supporters, so then they really started to attack us, and Bleeding Cool ran an article saying that my husband posted in the deplorables on his personal Facebook, so then we started getting trolled by extreme left groups like Transgender and some people from Black Lives Matter, and even got death threats. And so in the end, it turned out that my publishers stopped calling. People said stuff to me like, well, that's how you got blacklisted, was because you support Trump. Zenoscope artists. And among other comments. And really, we just flat out got blacklisted for all this stuff. And it was disappointing. It was really disappointing. I mean, my heart was broken, really. I've put so much hours and time into finally being an artist after years of giving it up, right? So Comicsgate, when I found it, I had completely given up social media, by the way. For about 7 months, I threw away my phone.
Well,
and I did not.
Death threats will do that to you.
It will. I did not have a phone number, and I liked it. I really liked it. It was awesome. I will always... I would be happy to go back to that at any time. But then I found Comicsgate, and I realized that I wasn't the only one. And what's funny is that all the people in our comic shop that only liked going to our shop and that supported us so hardcore felt the same way, that DC and Marvel were pushing a leftist agenda. And, I had realized too, it hit me that I was going through showing my portfolio to every job interview, and it had the Trump piece right in the front, which I meant as comedy. I meant as satire, right? But I must have been offending everybody. Seriously. And then the Trump derangement syndrome stuff started happening, and now we are where we are, and I just find it insane. So I am no longer welcome in the mainstream comics industry, not even a little bit. I would get publishers or people that were giving me free gifts or creators that would give my husband and I free gifts, free posters, free $300 sketches from veteran artists that loved us one day. Then the next day we'd walk around the show floor and we'd be given the worst, coldest looks. Like they did not want anything to do with us and we were evil. That was just my life. So I gave it all up. We gave it all up. You know, at this time we were, why are we trying to push something that doesn't sell? We ourselves had thought DC and Marvel sucked at this time and they were putting out crap content. And we just said, why are we doing this? You know, we want a better life. I was pregnant. So we wanted to have a baby and we gave it all up, let it all go, stopped, gave up the death threats. We were trying to host an event and we were being trolled so much. People were leaving us voicemails. They had tracked down my husband's phone and left us threatening voicemails. We got all kinds of false business reviews calling us like racist and things like that, which if you ever went into our store, we pushed the book Black, which we knew the creators of Black. We had shaken their hands and supported their book and donated to Black Lives Matter, their Black Lives Matter variant. There was nothing about us that said racist. But of course, all these leftist trolls that had never even been in our store were leaving us false reviews. People said my art career was sabotaged because of it. Because I opened my mouth, is what people say. And shared my beliefs and agreed with my husband's politics, because they like to blame him, that I no longer belonged as an artist in the industry.
Well, it was your husband's politics because you're a woman and you're not capable of having your own thoughts or politics, right? Like that's what's interesting is that that seems to be a common theme from women on the left to women on the right, is that they automatically assume that the husband has forced this upon the woman who is not independent, even though they talk about like that women are autonomous, except when you're on the right, then you're not.
And it's so funny because these same people would hit on me. So, like, you're talking about the whole rape culture and stuff, right? But then you try to weasel your way into my life and hit on me. There were even comic professionals. Oh, one time my husband bought a commission from this dude, paid him like $170 for this commission. And then he walked away. My husband walked away to go do something. And then the comic professional started hitting on me after my husband had just spent money on his book. That's the most disrespectful crap I've ever seen in my life. Okay, I am happily married, but people on the left were going as far to say that my husband was corrupting me and that like I needed help in my relationship, and they were trying to give me marriage advice and try to get me out of a toxic situation.
Okay, out of 10, how many of the people giving you marriage advice were married?
Zero.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe they were wanting to get married. One dude instead, he was total, I guess you could call him soy boy, whatever. He told me that because he was trying to message me like personal things, and I had to go through a thing. This was a huge test on our marriage too, and we survived it. Okay, we love each other very much, but as an artist, like I said before, people fan out on you, and I was a newer artist trying to make a name for myself, so I would get these DMs from people too that were very personal, and I'm courting them, and some people, maybe artists wanted to give me a gift and were giving me a lot of heart emojis, and getting a little schmoozy. And I had to define what is appropriate and what is not, because I wouldn't want my husband messaging a bunch of girls online that are giving him heart emojis and wanting to drop by gifts at his shop. You know what I mean?
Right. Absolutely.
So we had to set a boundary, because I was confused too. I'm like, this, I'm trying to be nice, but this is not okay. And then when I started rejecting people or shutting them down, people got really mad, and then they started to say, your husband is the problem, because I was a monogamous, happily married individual. They hate marriage.
You should have been in an open relationship so that they could slide into those DMs.
Woo, just come on in. It's a Mindy party, right? Hell no. Excuse me. Wow, that's the first time I've cursed.
How dare you? How dare you? Do you
But
want to get yelled at and thrown off this stream?
No, I'm so sorry. I let it slip.
You're fine. You're fine.
But no, that was weird. That was weird.
I've got a couple chats real quick that pertain to you, so I want to read them.
Sure.
Unintelligent Design says Mindy is an invaluable part of Comicsgate. Her channel is extremely insightful and consistently, I think it means, provides high quality content. If you want to have a better understanding of the business side of the comic book industry, she's it. So that was very nice. Kaz5166 says, you're a nice person with a good product. That's all that matters to people like me. Gojirify asks you to please later look up the article, Comic Book Shop Owners Get Double Shipment of Marvel's Iceman. This is in regards to that overshipping we were talking about. And True American Hero asked, did you really donate to Black Lives Matter? Lol.
Yeah, we did. Well, it was their variant, and then the creators took that variant, the profit from the variant, and donated it to the cause. Yes.
Sure.
So technically, yeah, I guess we did.
How dare you?
How dare we? But we were racist, though.
Right. Absolutely.
That's what they say.
And finally, Kaz5166 says, Nick, you do everything I'd do if I wasn't so lazy. Thanks for existing. Oh, thanks, buddy. And you're welcome. So, I don't know. I had an internet hiccup a little bit ago, and now the Google Hangouts has stopped switching. So I'm like manually switching now because it has turned into the worst thing ever. So I'm going to try and do that. And make sure that whoever's talking gets the focus. But no in the chat that I am now manually doing this. I am doing Google's job because they have failed me. Bagel Goose says, you think you're happily married until you meet Cecil. So, well, hey, I want to... so Comicsgate was really... if I can kind of summarize and paraphrase what you said, Comicsgate was really like a haven, right? It's like we went through this exile. We've been thrown out into the desert or wherever, into the ocean. And then along comes this little life raft of people who are like, no, get in and you can make what you want and you can do what you want. And you can engage people and do things. Is that accurate? Like, is that a good representation?
Absolutely. No, and it is. And that's what Comicsgate is to me. It is an avenue for me to finally pursue my dreams. That's what it is. Because, I wanted to, onto Karma, I wanted to release this book. And it's so funny because I've been told the weirdest stuff about getting a job in the industry. And a lot of it, I think, were people just making excuses to keep me running in circles because they didn't want to hire me because I supported Trump. But anyways, I was looked down upon a lot from professionals in the industry because I did mostly fan art at the time besides my gigs. And people would say, well, you're not worth hiring, or you're not worth being a part of our image or brand as an employee because you don't have your own original characters.
Sure.
I would get that all the time, which I get, but how do you do that? It's like getting a credit card without credit. Like, you have to hire me for me to be able to have some weight in the industry. So how am I supposed to get a job and do this if you don't want to hire me? Because then you'll hire me if I have reputation and nerd cred or whatever, and artist cred. So I was hitting this brick wall all the time where people would say, yeah, okay, you can draw pretty women. Zenescope hires you. Yeah, you've done some gigs for IDW or whatever, and Rothic Comics and whatever. You draw pretty things, but we won't take you seriously or push you at all until you've created all your own characters for free and released them online on a webcomic and gotten 1 million followers.
Right.
Is what that is. So I was like, come on, man. And anyways, so like I said, I was not doing art for 7 years, so I was a little rusty. So I started doing cover art because I'm a perfectionist, and I'd spend 50 or 60 hours on each piece, making it perfect. And that was my way of reteaching myself how to draw again. So now I'm doing sequentials. I'm doing Karma. And what was this question? Comicsgate. Oh, when I found Comicsgate, I realized that I could release Karma and there was still an audience, and I wasn't completely blacklisted by everyone, there was still somebody that would want to share that art experience with me. And as I knew it was out there somewhere, you know, I didn't do that all for nothing. I look back at the blood, sweat, and tears that we've put into this whole industry, and I felt disappointed. You know, when I left, I felt gypped. I felt gypped because it was all stupid. The reasons they were doing the stuff that they were and saying the things and not calling me anymore for jobs was idiotic, completely idiotic and biased. So I had given up social media, and I thought, I'm just going to release Karma as a written novel. Because I finally, after 5 years, figured out my book, finally figured out my original characters, and it was awesome. And I spent so much time doing it because I'm a perfectionist, right?
Right.
So I spent countless thousands of hours at this point over 5 years thinking about this book. So I was going to release it as a written novel, and then I found out through research that the same crap is happening in that industry too. The blacklisting of conservatives.
Absolutely.
So I was very disappointed. So I thought, well, that's just it for me, you know, whatever. I guess I'm through. But then I found Comicsgate, and I realized, oh wow, I'm not alone. So this dream is still possible. And now, because of the support, because of the people in this chat, you know what I mean? That's why I'm here. So Comicsgate to me is a very heartfelt movement where I finally get to show the world what I want to share with them.
Awesome. And now tell me about Karma, because this is a capitalism stream, and we want people, when Karma launches, it's not launched yet, right?
Right, not yet.
Okay, so, but we want people to know that when Karma launches, they need to check it out. So talk to me about Karma.
Okay. Well, now I just have to be super happy because I'm super happy with this project. So here's my elevator pitch. It says, you call it limbo, I call it the etherworld, where the damned are itching to break free. When the very threads of life and death unravel, it becomes one twisted, ugly fight to control the power of the etherverse. The most wicked of all have been plotting their takeover for centuries. Who will finally reign? So then afterwards it says, escape in this adventurous mythological fantasy. So it's an adventure mythology fantasy is the genre, about the fabric of morality, insatiable appetites, and the webs of wonder in an ancient world. It all begins with one brash and willful girl named Karma. So Karma is the name of my protagonist. My tagline is, a wicked comic series is coming your way. If you like witches, if you like spooky things, if you like fantasy, I'm going to say magic, but it's kind of magic. If you like cute little bat characters, go check out mindywheelerart.com. You can see my promo graphics there. And I think you're going to like it. Like I said, it's going to be people who like Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones. I think they're going to really like this because it's similar, but it's completely innovative. So I love mythology. I love fantasy. I love reading books. I love history, ancient history, and unsolved mysteries of the ancient world. So I crafted this whole universe in my head. You know, in reflection, I realized that the most successful creators, because I've always wanted to be a creator, not just an artist. Just art is part of it, okay? But I wanted to be a creator, like George Lucas's Star Wars. Like J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter, like, you know, anything, Marvel, Lego, whatever. Those are whole universes that exist that can breathe and live on their own. And I wanted to create my own universe. So this was a thought, you know, I had 5 years ago. I thought, what am I going to do for my own universe? Right. And I created this whole story. Because I intended to write it as a written novel, it would be 7 written novels in length, maybe 8.
That's
so
a long
as far as
story.
It is. Yeah. it's festered for a long time. But adapting as a comic book, it's going to be probably about twice that many. So probably about 16 or so 48-page issues is what I'm guessing will be the entire story. There are so many twists. I like the mystery writing and mysteries. So you're going to see a lot of twists in it. If you like dark themes, you'll like it. You'll dig the art too. Everything is traditionally colored and drawn, so it's all on toned brown paper. If you like Adam Hughes, he usually does his stuff on toned brown paper or tan paper, whatever it's called as well. It's a totally different style. It's totally different than traditional comic book art. It's my style that I've adapted, which has taken me 5 years, which is really cool because I used to get a lot of crap for not having a style because I could emulate different styles and I didn't know which was mine. So this is my style. This is what I draw. This is how I like my art. It's almost got a Disney villain feeling to it, and it's very ancient looking. I've woven together mysteries of the ancient world, a lot of mythological references that you'll see and think, oh, that's cool. That's a new twist on that character that I never thought of. And I've woven this story about the concept of limbo, where after you die, you get stuck in this world because you're morally poisoned and you're not ready or whatever. If just for some reason unknown, you're stuck there forever and you don't know how to get out. So thousands and thousands and thousands of years have passed, and the beings that are in this universe want to get out, are itching to get out, and are trying with every fiber of their being to figure out a way to get out. And finally, their opportunity to escape may have come. And the story is about the whole fight of when that comes. And all of the plots and schemes that have been festering for so long coming to fruition. So that's my story.
Okay.
That's Karma.
I have the critical question. How many of your characters are 300 pounds and have blue hair?
None.
What?
Well, no, I do have one in the background, maybe some heavy characters, but they're not women, actually, and no blue hair.
So
there's no hair dye in Limbo.
Only men can be fat. Okay, I got it.
Maybe more like trolls. big, nasty, wart festering trolls.
Well, what I will do is I will put a link to your webpage and a link to your YouTube channel down in the description when it's done. It's not there yet. I apologize for that, but everybody make sure you check that out because the art is very cool. I did take a gander at it. I'm not an art expert, but it looks nice, and that's how we judge. That's how we judge art here. The serious, deep criticism of, yeah, that looks cool, or that looks nice, or that's neat. Very, very solid reviews of arts. But
thank you, Nick. It launches in February, by the way. That's my goal date.
Okay, so everybody will want to definitely keep an eye out for that. Now, there's one more sort of area I want to talk about. Did I hear you mention that you had some legal issues? Do you want to talk about those? Do you not want to talk about those?
I've in a lot of ways I've had legal issues. So it just depends on what you want to pry into. I'll tell you just as a history lesson of me, I've battled custody and things like that, and I've won. And been to stuff like that. 3 or 4
lovely.
times. So that's not something that you'd really get into. But no,
I hate family law with all passion.
Yeah. It's an interesting place to be, but thank God that I feel like God was with me in that, and so that was all successful for me. So that was what I mean, really. If it comes to legal issues, I thought the Mark Waid versus Richard Meyer is interesting because of the whole slandering aspect, because we did have some slanderous stuff come out on the internet about us. Right. One in particular that it's comparable to the Mark Waid situation. If I can find it, I looked at Mark Waid's case and then I looked at mine and I thought, well, if he has a case, then I'm sure probably we do too. But I don't know if I'd be interested in taking it up, but maybe I'll see if I have it. It was, I know where it is. Well, I'll just tell you briefly, okay? And this is pretty much word for word what it said. So one of the creators that had gotten offended that my husband had made some homophobic comments. I didn't think it was homophobic. He wasn't even talking directly at gay people. He was talking about Facebook. Whatever. Okay. We all know that they get triggered over the littlest crap. Okay.
Right.
And so then the creator had canceled his signing and then had started to badmouth us. And then everybody was badmouthing us, but then taking it to a new level. There was this one creator that said, I have the screenshot. I posted it in one of my videos lately. I'll have to find it again. It said, if you or anybody knows about this show, ask them to cancel their booth at this show. Tell everyone to cancel at this show. Blah, 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 blah. So kind of just like the whole Mark Wade thing, because we were trying to also run a convention, which the convention politics go just as deep, if not deeper. They're all involved. If you pay attention to the creators denouncing Comicsgate, it is no coincidence that they all frequent conventions. Conventions are like a giant gossip chain. So, and very controlled by politics. So anyways, we kind of got ousted and blacklisted because of that, because some comics pros were trying to say stuff about us like that. But that was word for word what was in some creators' posts. Do you think that I would have a case then?
Well, it's a little different than Meyer's case because if they're posting it kind of out into the ether, it's difficult to say that they knew of the existence of a specific contract. So that's when you're looking at a tortious interference case, like in Meyer versus Wade, you've got Wade knowing specifically that Meyer has an agreement with Antarctic Press and then contacting Antarctic Press to interfere with that. Whereas with your case, he's saying, if anybody out there has booked with these guys, you need to cancel. So he's got the right, the correct intent to interfere with contractual relationships, but he doesn't know of the specific one. And then I think there's a bigger question this is unanswered. So I'm going to talk about it. There's not case law about this, but this has come up with people like Renfamous and stuff like that lately, where are these posts that are publicly made on social media, even if they tag someone, like for example, you tag Indiegogo and you say, this person is doing this, you should stop their campaign, for example. There's a real question on if that level of contact is enough to rise to tortious interference. Whereas with Wade and Antarctic Press, I mean, it's a direct phone call. Wade has some influence with Antarctic Press. So it's a different balancing test. I think your case would be very difficult because all he'd say is, well, I have no knowledge if anyone at all has even booked with them, much less any specific person, and I'm just airing my opinion that these people are terrible, and I have a right to do that. So
Okay.
I think that would be the distinction there that would make it really, really tough. Now, depending on what else was said, it's possible that there would be some sort of defamatory statements, but you really have to be careful with how much the damages are, and being able to tangibly link those damages to the action. Meyer is, in a way, this is going to sound wrong, but in a way very fortunate in how everything occurred because he had just made a bunch of money. So now on a separate deal with Antarctic Press, but for like basically the same product, he can show that the product would be successful. He can talk about the specific expenses he had to undergo to undo what Wade did. So he can actually quantify his damages really well. And then he's also got this nice track record of Mark Wade saying exactly what he was going to do. That kind of makes Meyer's case this really unique case for tortious interference because all of these pieces kind of fall into place, whereas for everyone else, they get really tough to prove. So I would be hesitant to say that you have a case there, just and you probably should, because people need to just stop doing this. But
Right.
actually,
False accusations, right?
right, and but actually just proving it in court. I mean, you're talking about dumping $10,000 to get started in federal court, and that's not going to get you far. A tortious interference case in federal court, you're talking 50 grand to go in. So unless you're recovering significantly more than that, it's a rough gig, unfortunately.
So I have two more questions for you then. So one of another big hit we had was when a comics professional who was very, very well known, still is to this day, came out and said that we were, or well, my husband, of course, not me, had written emails to people saying that he was trying to misrepresent another individual who also ran conventions, trying to imply or something. However it went, I don't know. He just said that my husband was a crook, trying to pretend that he had relationships with some creators or some con showrunner, whatever, that he didn't. However he phrased it. And then all of his trolls continued to harass us for months and months and months afterwards, when it was not that case at all. And even the email that he had gotten it from, the person who got the email was responding on that thread saying this actually didn't happen at all. So that was interesting. So basically my husband got called a liar and a crook. Then when we tried to confront that show owner that was involved and the comics professional that was involved, I have all the screen caps of this. They immediately just gave us a cold shoulder, called my husband a liar and blocked him, and wouldn't even give him a chance to confront the situation. That caused us a lot of damage because that was about our show. I think it was kind of like a hit job. I really do. I think because funny enough, you remember at the beginning of this conversation, I started talking to you about a comic shop who was very much our rival.
Right.
That had backstabbed us. So the show owner was buddy with that comic shop owner.
Gotcha.
No coincidence that this had come to be a year or two later, coming from the same source. Okay.
Right.
So we were still competitors.
That would be, it really depends on what was said and whether, whether it was actionable statements of fact. Defamation requires a statement of fact about someone. And the statement of fact must be false. An audience of reasonable people looking at it would have to determine that it was a statement of fact, basically. So it gets highly technical, although just based on what you're telling me, it sounds like that would be a more likely case than the other one. But I'd have to really look at the situation and see. And then again, you come down to quantifying damages, although calling someone a liar in the context of business may have presumed damages, which would be very interesting in that case, because that might automatically make it worth it when you have those presumed damages. So that one's a little different. I mean, if you ever want me to look at it and just give you kind of an honest opinion, you can always kind of collect the stuff and DM it to me, and I'll give it a glance over and tell you if you should bother contacting another attorney to see if you should pursue the case. But that'll
be interesting. And here's the other thing too. The thing that bothers me most is that if there was any confusion about ownership of the show or whatever, anybody could have asked. So it seemed very intentional that this was put out onto the internet before we were even contacted. We woke up one morning to this comics professional just blasting us online and everybody blasting us for no reason at all, because they could have, you know what I mean? They could have asked us if there was any question.
Of course. But why ask when you can accuse?
Right. Right. That's why I don't like false accusations. It could have all been cleared up. If there was even any confusion, I don't even think there was reason for confusion. because they were trying to say that we had bought out the show or claimed to buy out the show and we didn't, for example. That was part of it.
Sure.
So yeah, that would be an interesting case. But see, that's where I'm just really getting in deep, because these are very famous creators that a lot of people, even within Comicsgate, have allegiance to.
Sure.
So I don't know if I want to go testing those waters, but I would maybe be curious. But that's why Comicsgate is a new, fresh start, right?
Right. It gives you the ability to overcome that stuff.
Yeah.
Which is certainly, that's what we're going to move into this in just a second. I don't know how long you're planning on staying here, but I've got a few more questions.
Yeah, go for it.
Here, let me read these. I've got a couple super chats. Canvash says, love all your live streams, Cass Michael. Thanks, Cass, buddy. I appreciate that. Where Tiger Ray says, what's the chance that there could be a friend of the court from various comic store owners for the Meyer lawsuit? Amicus briefs, I'd have to check to see. An amicus brief is a friend of the court, where they would basically offer an opinion to the court. Typically those are reserved for appeals, although I'd have to check the Western District of Texas rules on amicus briefs and district court cases. Maybe I'll talk about that. I think that'd be really interesting to do an amicus brief from, if we could find some comic store owners that were Meyer friendly, we'll say, that are now mad that they don't get to have access to Jawbreakers because of the way distribution works and because of Wade's interference. That'd be an interesting topic. I'll look into it. And see. Oh, excuse me. So the next question I have for you, and this is kind of the final topic I want to delve into a little bit, is how do you manage being a creator, but also being, having a family? You have a couple children there at home. You have a husband. So how do you balance that out? How do you make that work? Because being a creator means at some point there is some starving artist, whether you want to stay there or not. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, and that's exactly why I haven't been an artist until now, not a creator. So I did the artist thing, but that's only because my husband was super supportive and I was able to do that with his help. Without him, I didn't even pick up a pencil. So it's really thanks to him. I love him, that I'm here. But it's not easy, especially because I have a very little one. So the only thing that really makes it work is I get up as early as I can in the morning, which is really hard for me. I depend very strongly on coffee and bacon. And I get through my morning, I get through the coffee and the bacon, and then I just have to block out my day. I have to set aside a couple of hours, which is hard because sometimes I don't get that. I don't get that being a mom. I don't get that because I homeschool, and I just have to do my very best. And if you stay on a schedule, I think this is kind of, I might be wrong, but I've read it somewhere, habits of highly effective, successful people, whatever. You stick to a schedule and that's the best you can do. And sometimes I only get to draw one panel that day. Sometimes I get to draw a whole page that day. I just have to sort of separate my day into a little bit of maybe marketing, a little bit of drawing, a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And I have so much time each week allotted. That's actually a skill that I learned in project managing when I was doing marketing, and I managed a lot of projects. I managed an HR department at one point. I managed the payroll for people. So I would delegate projects and delegate work. So if you ever are wondering that, the only and best thing I think you can do is set your schedule up like a project management schedule. Blocks of time every day, force yourself to do it. And that's the only way that you're going to get anything done. It just takes time, but that's what I do. Thankfully, I have a supportive husband and supportive kids.
Yeah, that obviously the family is crucial, and having their support and not fighting against that is it's how you have to do any sort of self-motivated work, I'll say. But I have to take issue with one thing you said, because you mentioned that it's like the skills of highly effective people. They set up schedules, and while I agree that that's a thing, and I see those people and they are highly successful, it turns out though that when I look at them, God, I hate all of them. Right? I know that walking around like a robot like Mark Zuckerberg would maybe make me a billionaire, but man, I hate Mark Zuckerberg.
I don't like Zuckerberg either. And I have to agree with you though. I haven't actually found anybody worth looking up to either. But it's the only thing that keeps me on task. I think the world is going through a lot of ebbs and flows and changes. And for the longest time, conservatives have been ousted from any sort of creative industry. I don't think this is new. I just think it's been in effect, and now it's full blown. Full blown blacklisting is where we're at. So to just such an extent that it's happening in multiple industries, even in children's books. I thought for a minute there, oh, well, I'll create children's books instead of comics and writing. And even that the books are getting dumber. I frequent the library with my son because I do homeschooling. And so I educate him, obviously. And last time I was at the library, or not last time, but a while ago, there was a book on Hillary, Obama, and how to make meth.
Oh, perfect.
Methamphetamine in the children's section. I was trying to find Black Beauty. Couldn't find it. Couldn't find Black Beauty.
No, you need meth.
Yeah, you need meth. It was like a how-to book. It was insane. So I was very disappointed. So I think these things are just coming to a climactic point in the world. And we can rewrite that kind of history. I think that there's a lot to learn still. So don't put your faith away in that highly successful habit of routine quite yet. Because maybe I'll change your mind. Maybe you'll still like me in 5 years when I've got karma out and things are good, maybe.
Yeah. And I want to talk about homeschooling a little bit, but I want to do these chats. Tranquil Blue says, clocking in late for a super chat drink since I just got off work and home from the bar. Can't wait to throw it back and check this whole thing. Yeah, thank you very much for that, Tranquil Blue, and I hope you enjoy the whole thing. I should put the this manual camera switching is ticking me off. That guy from that thing says, scale of 1 to 10, how legal is it to dox Minnesotans? If it's me, it's highly illegal. Just kidding. You know who I am. You know where my office is. Or was, soon to be was. My office is moving to my home, which has been part of my plan for a little while now, and I'm very happy about that. My new home office will be, videos starting in December will look very, very different. So that'll be interesting. But I assume he's referring to Mr. Medicare. I don't know that it's actually illegal to dox people. YouTuber Law has an interesting video about the legality of doxing, and it's really hard to find a statute that says doxing is illegal. There are certain actions within doxing that might be illegal, but it's really nebulous at this point. But if Medicare ever happens to see this, Medicare, I'd be down to meet up for a drink, buddy, and talk about it. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about homeschooling, because we also homeschool. So what brought you to homeschooling? How long have you been doing it? All those good homeschool questions. And are your kids able to even communicate with anybody? I mean, they're basically low functioning automatons walking around who have no social skills, right? That's what I assume.
Oh my goodness. My kid is the most social kid on the planet now. This is really good stuff. I'm very passionate about this. So I never wanted to homeschool. Never occurred to me. Didn't think I was ever going to do it one day. But I turned out to be very, very disappointed in the public school system. I took my son to school, and it was the worst thing I think I could have ever done for him. The teachers this front office staff. It was terrible. They were very insulting actually towards me for some reason. I don't know. And I told you about my history a little bit. I was a single mom for about 4 years, so I'm young. I've been young to be a mom. Now I've been a mom for almost 10 years. Okay, I'm about 30 years old. Been a mom for about 10 years. I've had people straight up come to me at the mall, being a young mom with a kid, and say things like, well, can you help me with my daughter? She was doing so good. She was doing so good in school, and then she's just kind of dropped off, and I just don't know. I don't want her to end up like you. You know, yeah.
Yes, I want to help you now. Right now, that's what I want to do.
Yeah, I mean, holy crap. But, you know, and this is part of what made me become a conservative, was I grew up in an extreme leftist household. Okay. Very political. They loved politics more than family. I was disowned when I was 18 because I wouldn't have an abortion and I disagreed with them politically. And overall, it clashed very much that I wanted to go to church and I believed in God. And they didn't. All of those things were very evil to them. So that's kind of how that happened for me. And I've fended for everything I've gotten. I've worked for everything I've had. And I was on my own for a long time, working very, very, very hard. You know, I could have had an abortion, right? My high school sweetheart and I were together for 5 years. That's where my son came from. And I graduated high school when I was 16. So I was young doing everything, right? Sure. But I took full responsibility, never got child support, never pursued child support, won custody, all that, became a sole legal parent, which is very hard to do. They have to investigate you and everything. And I gave an extremely good life for my son. You know, it was super difficult, but I did it by myself with no family, no friends, nothing. And I became a conservative through all of that, through faith and through working hard. So then I want what's best for my son. I meet my husband, which was totally unexpected. I never wanted to meet anybody yet. But then he swept me on my feet. We got married, and here we are 6 years later or something like that. Taking him to school, I was so horrified. Okay, so these kids get on their tablets and they're looking up YouTube videos, which are extremely inappropriate. Yeah. And it's everywhere. It's everywhere. You know, an apartment that we lived in, I used to catch these kids by our window all the time, sneaking, watching little videos on their phone. And their parents are trusting their little, you know, them to watch their 4-year-old sisters and brothers, which don't even know what the world is yet. They're just, you know, still baby talking at this point, and they're looking up stuff like porn on their phones. That was a huge red flag. I also worked in daycare quite a bit throughout my time, or I taught kids, you know, as a teacher for a little bit. And I just realized how horrible it was. And the things that parents were saying to their kids, how there was no discipline. There was no teaching. Everything was made to be so dumb. And I started to notice when my son was in kindergarten, he would come home and he would be so bored. And he'd have the same regurgitated material over and over and over again. And I was like, what are you learning? So I went into the classroom one time and I volunteered. And it's 8 hours long, right? It was about maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours of teaching. The rest of the time it was the teacher going, sit down, sit down, sit down, get that out of your mouth, sit down, stop playing, or stop, not able to control the kids. There's way more kids than she could have handled. And I thought, this is stupid. I'm just going to homeschool him. Dude, I can't in good conscience put my kid in this class. He's not learning anything. And I excelled. I skipped 8th and 12th grade. And I was in accelerated programs because I tested into them. You know why? Because I had good teachers that inspired me to learn. He's not getting any of that. So then I found homeschooling and I just took a liking to it. Just recently, my son, who's supposed to be in about 4th grade, I took him to get tested. To check on how he was doing, and he tested at a 6th grade level. And my son is the most social kid ever. He loves everybody. He's a goofball. I think he's going to be a stand-up comedian when he grows older. There's nothing holding him back. So socially, he's fine. And I think homeschool is a godsend. I'm so glad that I started doing it.
Yeah, and we had, let me change the camera. We had similar experiences, although our kids never went to school, so they didn't have that. But the socialization aspect is always funny to me because here's the thing. The kids will socialize in the environment that they're in. So I've met children. I don't know if any of you guys have. I have met children, and they are horrific little creatures. Like, I like my own kids, but groups of children, especially in a public school setting, are not good people. They're not. They're actually largely terrible people. And that persists from grade school all the way up through high school. And if you have any doubt about that, just think back to your own high school experiences. Now, the question is, when we talk about socialization, sure, a homeschool kid may be awkward in a public school, a public high school setting. Absolutely. But one of the first things that we do getting out of high school is we deprogram from what we've been socialized to for the last several years. And we mock people who get stuck in that rut. We mock people who are, quote unquote, still in high school years later. So the socialized or poorly socialized homeschooler, I think, is a meme that is left over from an era when really homeschooling was much less popular, and it really was very specific groups of people homeschooling who were much more likely to be sheltered based on who was doing the homeschooling, more than the fact that they were homeschooled at all. But yeah, I mean, I can't imagine sending my kid to a public school these days because it's just nonsense.
Yeah.
My kid's homeschooling is done if they actually just sit down and do the work, they're done in like 2 hours. Whereas a public school, they'd be there for 8 hours, not do that 2 hours of work, and then bring it home anyway. So it's just, I hate it.
Yeah. And you can really be efficient because it's so one-on-one. You can excel. And honestly, Karma is the only person that knows the full story of Karma is my kid, is my son.
Right.
And he's mentally, able to grasp it all. And I trust him with it. And because he's around me so much, kids emulate what they're around. They're very impressionable. So if you're an adult spending your time with your kid's going to act more like an adult than they do like a kid and learn how to think like an adult. So I find him incredibly mature.
Yeah, and the other thing with that is kids are a lot so I'm a big fan of the Ender's Game novels and all of the offspring of those by Orson Scott Card, and all of his characters, all of the kid characters are absurdly smart. It's a bunch of little geniuses.
Yeah, it's a good book.
Right. And in an interview, someone asked him, they said, "Why do you write kids that are so smart? It doesn't seem real." And he says, maybe it's because you don't understand children. They're a lot smarter than they're given credit for if you give them the opportunity to be that way. And I think in public school they don't have that opportunity. They have people who aren't programmed to treat them as if they're people. They're programmed to treat them as if they're a grade unit. Well, these are kindergartners. It's like, well, no, there's a bunch of kids who are in kindergarten. So it's very different, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. And I had went to check out a public school this year because I thought, well, maybe it's time to get him back in. And for anybody who don't know, there are homeschool groups, sports groups and things like that you can get them involved in. So they're not totally by themselves. It's good because you have like a structured learning time where they're not distracted. And then you have a social time. And then I think they can focus better when they know which is which and they can learn more. But anyways, I went to go check out a public school, and it was the most horrific experience ever. It was like, I don't know, some sci-fi movie. I went in there and their whole entire curriculum is on a tablet. So I said, if I enroll my kid here, can I opt out of the tablet? And it's the whole curriculum. It's just like Facebook, where they post comments and they post videos of themselves, and then the teacher watches their videos and gives them a thumbs up.
That's the last thing on earth I want my kid doing.
Their tagline is Instagram for schools. that was the program's actual official tagline. And you had to sign a permission slip that's called a social media release. And I said, I'm sorry, I don't allow my kid on social media. And I don't permit this kind of behavior. I send him to the library. My kid loves books. Okay. I said, where's the books? Can you print out the homework so I can do the curriculum on paper if I choose to enroll him? And the teacher went, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to print it out. So I guess he just won't ever have homework. And you know what she did? I had my kid had a conversation with her, and she went, oh, we're just going to do it anyways.
Oh, lovely.
Is what she told my kid. So because she knew that I had that conversation and said, I don't think I want him to doing it. And she went, oh, we're just going to do it anyways. So it's between you and me.
Well, the one thing I know
way.
I definitely want is I want a government worker with a bunch of videos of my child. That's what I want, because nothing bad can happen when the government has videos of people or when the government has private information. It will always be protected. Just think, guys. You know public school employees, and you know the caliber of person they are. You can trust them. You can trust all of those teachers who could never figure out how to run a VCR. Just update that and figure out if they'll be private with your children's important information. So we've got a couple chats to go through. Fook Google 2, Google 2 says, what an interesting interview. Thank you. I find it very interesting as well. Keck7Go, it says, it sounds like your kid is going to end up like Asterios Kokonos. Don't let him become friends with balding Armenians. That's just good advice. Tranquil Blue says, I still remember the times in 2nd and 3rd grade my teachers berated my parents for my choice to read Edgar Allan Poe in the 3rd grade, and consider how I turned out homeschool. St. Paul Academy is poop. Well, strong words. We'll see if St. Paul Academy will ever respond. Well, Mindy, I think I need to wrap it up, mainly because you guys may be able to hear it, but I'm getting kind of a sinus thing. I also need to change the ice pack on my leg, and probably need to go to bed. I've had a little bit of a long day, but I really appreciate the. I'll switch back to you in a second. I really appreciate the interview, the time you've taken. I definitely want people to check out your book Karma, and know that there's still us out here fighting for homeschooling. And guys, I know you probably have heard about homeschool children. The weird thing is, homeschool children, and awkward homeschool children, and other children who were homeschooled, but you don't know that they were homeschooled. That's the real trick of it.
That's true. Yep.
Is that I would say most of them are vastly more normal and probably boring. No, I'm just kidding. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, Nick, thank you. This has been an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate you having me.
Yes. And so I do have an announcement, and Mindy, don't go yet. I'm going to end the stream, and then we'll say goodbye separately from all of these lovely fans. Okay. But I do have an announcement for those of you still watching. It has come out. If you've been following my channel from the beginning, you know about this already. But it has recently been discovered by anti-Comicsgate people that there is a photo of me in blackface. Or what they call blackface. I will argue that it's not, but it doesn't really matter. It is a legitimate photo. It was me in the picture, and so that obviously delegitimizes anything I have ever said and will ever say. But if you're familiar with that photo of me, my announcement is that tomorrow night I will be celebrating 10,000 subscribers. A little bit late because we're like at 11,600 roughly right now, but a little late. I will be celebrating my 10,000 subscribers with a interview with the person who I was dressed up as that Halloween. My very good friend. I will be interviewing him live in my home tomorrow, and we will discuss the blackface photo. We will talk about how offended and oppressed he was, how enslaved he was by my cultural appropriation. We will be talking all about that. So do come tomorrow, same time, 11 p.m. Ask questions, and we're gonna have. I've already told him that we're gonna do like a 2 or 3 hour stream, and he will be answering questions and giving his perspective on racism, on misandry, on feminism, on Me Too, on what it's like to be a black male in the American legal system and in the current environment. We're going to talk about things like exploitation based on identity, because I think that feminism is cashing in on identity in the way that blaxploitation films of the 70s were cashing in on identity. So we're going to talk about all of that stuff tomorrow. So do check that out. I think it'll be a great stream. A bunch of people have asked if I will be in blackface for the stream. I will not. Sorry. But definitely come watch. So, all right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to blank out the screen here, and we will see you guys tomorrow. Thanks again to Mindy.
Thank you, guys.
You guys have a good night.